So I'll call the meeting to order. In attendance for directors, we have Rafia and Renee, Dick, Shari, Nancy, Lynn, Ginny, Milton, Andy. And Alan, are you on the phone?
Yes.
Okay, good. And Janet, are you on the phone? Well, Janet is going to be calling in. Okay, so Alan's here on the phone. Alan, can you hear us okay?
Pretty good, yeah.
Thank you. All right, I'll remind everyone that the meeting is being recorded and streamed to the internet. And I would ask that you be very respectful. The mics pick up a lot of background noise, so just remind everyone to minimize the background noise. And I do know that Alan's on the phone, and hopefully Janet will be there shortly. I have no closed meetings to announce. Approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. I second.
So Nancy moved and Rafia second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor? It's like an end.
Aye.
Thank you, Alan. Disclosure of conflicts of interest, none have been disclosed to me. So let's go to resident speak out. Just remind everyone, when you come up, please come up and speak into the mic. One, so that we can hear you, and two, that our streaming will catch you. And second, 3 minutes per individual, 5 minutes per group. Ginny is our timekeeper right at the moment, and I'll put a sign up saying 30 seconds left. So, Janet, could I have the list? And also I'll point out there's a few handouts there that talk about resident speak out, and also sending the board an email. So feel free to take one. Thank you, Janet. Okay, first up, we have Pat Hersey, representing, I forget which group you're.
Less plastic, please.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you and good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Pat Hersey. I'm co-founder of Less Plastic, Please. And thank you again for listening to our concerns. First, all those who support the climate emergency and reducing plastic, will you please stand up? Thank you so much.
Well, thank you all for coming out tonight.
So the book Drawdown is considered the world's leading resource for climate solutions. An international coalition of researchers, scientists, and policymakers came together to offer a set of realistic and bold solutions for climate change. The book was edited by an American environmentalist, Paul Hawken. In an interview, he stated, there are 100 solutions listed. One is number 100. Given our past inactions, every single one needs to be done. Every single one is important. This might seem overwhelming, but due to some chance of fate, we are all here right now, in this moment. So it's up to us to make it happen. This is game on. One of the solutions is eliminating petroplastic. A transition towards zero waste is the best path to reduce emissions for plastic. Getting there would be a cultural shift, admittingly difficult, but it is doable and it is necessary. With your help, Less Plastic Please is up for the challenge. And why concern ourselves with plastic? A recent report warns that expanding current plastic production will make it, quote, impossible for the world to meet the Paris Climate Accord goal, end quote. United Nations scientists have said that warming beyond the goal would result in, quote, catastrophic climate change, end quote. So you see the absurdity when you realize that almost 50% of the plastic we are producing right now is single-use plastic. Change is hard, but here's another benefit of reducing plastic. Studies show that once environmental actions are in place, consumers are more likely to favor other environmental friendly actions. A recent unfortunate development is in the news. Howard County Schools are ending their cafeteria recycling program as of 2020. This is a perfect example why we need a climate emergency. If every action was viewed through the lens of the climate crisis, a solution would have been found instead of this dismal decision. Yes, this is all difficult, but Less Plastic Please has several doable solutions to reduce single-use plastic right now if a climate emergency declaration was in place. I'd be happy to discuss them with you, and they were included in my email testimony. As they say, every journey begins with a single step. Reducing plastic is a great first step to promote the ripple effect for a healthier environment. We are at a pivotal moment in history. County Executive Ball recently said, quote, "We cannot wait for the rest of the world to recognize this crisis. We must innovate and be the model of leadership we want others to follow. If not now, then when?" End quote. And to quote Greta Thunberg, the 16-year-old environmentalist, "To do your very best is no longer good enough. We must all do the seemingly impossible," end quote. The CA board has a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Let's be the leadership others will follow. Thank you.
Pat, you said you emailed us? You said you emailed us?
I did. Did you receive
Could you resend it because it isn't in my queue?
Yeah, I didn't see it.
Yes, we didn't get it.
Oh,
Or at least I didn't get it. So could you redo it again, please?
sure, I will be more than happy to.
And could you include the, like a link to the first report you talked about? The first
in
one,
my-
the 100.
In the
Oh,
email,
it's in
I
there.
gave links
Okay.
to all of my,
Alright.
all my studies and everything. Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any questions from the board? Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Roxanne Segovia Beltran. I hope I got that right.
Roxana Segovia Beltran.
Welcome,
It's a
Roxanne.
little long, I know. Hi, my name is Roxana. I am a Columbia resident. I've lived here for almost a couple years, and I'm really happy to be in this community. It's a very different community that I've ever lived in before, and I always appreciate that. And I wanted to speak today because I am very concerned about the climate situation that we're in. And, I do kind of want to ask do you really need to be convinced that we need to declare a climate emergency? Because the science is there, and it's been there for about 30 years, and now we're realizing the day-to-day reality of it. There's no time to waste, and we need to get straight into the conversation on how we're going to implement evidence-based solutions to combat climate change. So, nearly half of the solid waste produced globally is organic or biodegradable. But the problem is that most of it will end up in landfills, and it decomposes in the absence of oxygen and produces greenhouse gas methane, which is 34 times more powerful than carbon dioxide over a century. So, in your strategic priorities in the environmental sustainability plan, the first objective in action step B it's written, increase recycling and composting rates. So according to what I read, you guys want to compost more, right? Mm-hmm. So I am a CA member, and I also am a parent of Longfellow Nursery School. It's a school that's been here for 30 years, and you guys rent to CA. They rent from the CA, right? And I think there's a lot of room for improvement. So the first thing I want to mention, something very simple. You guys have compostable cups in your gyms, which is good, but there's no compost bin. So what do you think happens to those compostable cups? Do they get magically composted? No. They become greenhouse gas methane, and it just pollutes just as much as if you would have just had plastic, really. And from there, I understand that the CA does not pay Howard County so that its facilities can have composting and recycling pickup where we rent, right? So in our nursery school, we are forced to throw away compostable materials like paper towels because you guys don't provide recycling and composting in those areas that we pay. And you know, if you don't know anything about Longfellow, it is a nonprofit parent-owned school, and we basically have no money. So we can't afford to pay that for ourselves. So, you know, I would love to see composting and recycling options in all CA buildings and making sure that it's being done. And from there, we are very lucky to live in Howard County, a county that actually is expanding a composting program, which is really, it's momentous because most other counties in the United States don't do that. And I think the CA should push to educate its residents so that all of Columbia has composting pickup. Because it's been shown that this creates a huge impact, and it's not that big of a change when you think about it. You just put your trash in a different place. So zero waste, I also want to quickly talk about that. And I think I know that you guys have a community service department that really should roll out residential outreach to encourage zero waste lifestyles in Columbia. So I do want to end on that, you know, as you can see, we are active members of the community, and we are pushing for a climate change solution. And we want to continue this conversation, and we also want you to know that the CA will continue to hear from us until we see swift action. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Any questions? Alan, any questions?
He's not here.
No, thank you. No.
Next up is Megan Brianza, sorry. Welcome, Megan. Individual.
Hi, my name is Megan Braganza. I actually live in Ellicott City, so I don't live in Columbia, but I thought this was a really important thing to come talk about tonight. I wanted to start by reading a small excerpt from an article in Fast Company. In a remote corner of Iceland, a sprawling field of dark rocks and a small patch of thin ice is all that is left of a former glacier called Oki, once covering 15 square miles. The site is now the site of a glacier memorial. There is a plaque that was just put up on August 18th of this year that simply reads, Oki is the first Icelandic glacier to lose its status as a glacier. In the next 200 years, all of our glaciers are expected to follow the same path. This monument is to acknowledge that we know what is happening and what needs to be done. Only you will know if we did it. So I guess that's the essence of why we're here tonight. It's not fair for us to be asking you as a group of people to make this decision. This really was supposed to, I think, originally be on the national level. The meetings of nations have been talking about this problem for a long time, and for a variety of different reasons, change has not happened, and it has not happened fast enough. We are now at 415 parts per million carbon dioxide. We are growing, or that number is going up 2 every year. We are way outside of a regular carbon cycle. Now I wanted to talk about, I guess, the reason why it's important for an organization like CA to declare a climate emergency. There are ways to fix this problem. At this point, even if we did everything right with renewable energy, we can stop the rise of emissions. But carbon dioxide stays in the atmosphere for decades. What we need to actually do is go backwards, which means sequestration. I just came back from a global climate restoration forum at the United Nations last week, and they talked about a bunch of different technologies that they are looking at and testing and trying. Honestly, the one that resonated the most and the number one way to sequester by far is planting trees. Right now, there are a bunch of different global movements happening, including the Trillion Tree Project. The planet used to have 6 trillion trees, and now we have 3. And the Trillion Tree Project is looking to restore and protect, replant 1 trillion trees by 2050 to try to do exactly that, reverse our carbon dioxide number by 2050. So by CA declaring a climate emergency, everything that they look at can be through the lens of, is this good for the climate? They can put initiatives into place. What do we need to do for the climate? We need to be doing that over the next decade. It's critical. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Any questions? Thank you. Okay, the next one. Defray Demorix? Welcome.
Could you ask her to spell her name?
Yeah, could you spell your name for us?
D-E-F-N-E? D-E-F-N-E?
Yeah, it's phonetic.
Okay. Welcome.
Hi. Hi, my name is Daphne. I am 15 years old. I'm testifying to urge you to declare a climate emergency and to address our plastic crisis. I predicted that my first time here wouldn't be my last, so I'm here now, and I will be here in the future as many times as necessary. First, I want to thank the Less Plastics team, everyone here who is supporting us, and Jenny Thomas, who is helping to make it all happen.
No, that's not accurate. We all work on
Wait.
it.
Let her finish. Let her finish. Please.
We really do appreciate your hard work. I also want to thank all of our other board members who have recognized our concerns and want to help us achieve a cleaner future. Last time I was here, I addressed most of the details about the current state of the Earth's health, so I won't go into it today. I think everyone here knows the extent of this issue. For me, climate change is and continues to be a frequent concern. I think about it at least 2 to 3 times a day. I took a math exam today. I have a chemistry exam tomorrow, accompanied by a few hours of homework, standardized tests, college applications, and now a whole climate crisis to give me anxiety on top of everything. I can't balance it all. It's too much. I shouldn't have to balance it all. I wish I could say my only worries are about school, but that would be a lie. There are other high schoolers who would agree with what I'm testifying for, but it's just as difficult, if not more difficult, for them to balance their lives as well. So please alleviate some of our stress. I feel like our recent climate strike displayed our need for action. First, I want to stress the importance of declaring a climate emergency. This declaration would bring much needed attention to our climate crisis. Columbia Association makes up most of Howard County. Everyone who lives here knows about CA. However, most people fail to recognize our climate crisis, or they simply don't know how to help. A declaration will help to create a sense of urgency surrounding this issue. We need more people talking about the climate crisis. That's how we can get things done. when everyone is working towards a common goal. But we need to start somewhere. So I think CA should take the lead and spark the flame. Obviously, immediate action should be taken after declaring a climate emergency. I have a few suggestions to consider relating to our climate emergency and the plastic crisis, including hosting events without single-use plastics like utensils, plates, cups, bags, you name it. Compostable alternatives for throwaway items and composting in general. Eco-friendly cleaning products. Recognizing actions taken by CA to be more environmentally successful. Implementing and encouraging native plant growth. Investing in more renewable energy. Let's make a building operate with net zero emissions. Help support our bills, our environmental bills. Sponsor events that promote sustainability and environmental education. And last, get input from us. We have so many great ideas waiting to be heard. I can create a more detailed list of these ideas as needed. I just wanted to give a general idea of what I would like to see happen. Thank you all for your time. I appreciate you listening to my testimony.
Thank you, Deb.
Just a quick,
Any questions?
just a quick comment. A lot of you are presenting a lot of interesting ideas. Would it be possible, maybe when you get home or tomorrow, to just send that in to us so we have it in writing?
Yeah.
There's been quite a few speakers. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any questions? Alan?
I don't have a question. I'd just like to request that people speak closer into the mic.
Closer into the mic,
Okay.
okay. Thank you, Deb. Next up, we have Tom Scott. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you. Yes, I will. Okay.
So please speak into the mic, Tom.
I'm trying.
You can move the mic closer, too, if you
I
need.
just did. Thank you. Thank you. My name is Tom Scott. I live in Wild Lake. I'm passing around a spreadsheet and a graph that talks about the losses of CA's golf courses over the last 25 years. That 25 years happens to coincide with the time that Fairway Hills has been open. But the spreadsheet covers both Fairway Hills and Hobbits Glen. The most important thing on the spreadsheet is, as usual, the bottom line. And you will see that the cumulative losses of the golf programs now exceeds $27 million. That's a lot of money. I think the spreadsheet pretty much speaks for itself. It breaks down the losses for each course for each year over the last 25 years. Of the last 25, the last 5 years, shown on the bottom lines of the spreadsheet, are probably the most important. And during that 5-year time, the loss rate has increased dramatically. In 2015, your golf courses lost $1.1 million. In 2019, your golf courses lost $2.2 million. In 5 years' time, the losses have doubled. I don't know exactly what you can do about the losses, but I'm sure you have a knowledgeable staff that can tell you what can be done to shut them down. My concern is that the trend is going in the wrong direction. And we're talking about a lot of money now. I'm not going to bore you with trying to go through the spreadsheet, but I wanted to convey that information. Thank you for your time. Are there any questions?
Could we have a copy for Alan and Janet?
They have them.
Okay, good, just in case. Any questions for Tom? Tom, you are aware that Fairway Hills is on our list of things to address this year.
Yes, but I'm also aware that at least recently, Hobbit's Glen has been losing considerably more money than Fairway Hills. So you may want to include that on your list of things to look into as well. One other thing before I leave, I think going to banning single-use plastic in all CA facilities would be a wonderful step in the right direction.
Wait, Tom, Alan has a question. Alan has a question.
Yes, Tom?
Yes.
Tom, the pools lose a lot of money each year too. So I guess I'd like to hear you talk about whether your concern is about golf losing money, CA losing money, or why it's more important to do something about golf losing money than pools losing money.
It's a good question. I'm not sure I have a succinct answer, but let me say it like this. The demographic part of CA's population that plays golf is pretty well heeled. They can very easily afford to pay for the golf program. That doesn't necessarily apply to all the other things that CA does for the community. Does that help?
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom. Any other questions? Oh, wait, Rafi has a question. Sorry, Tom.
Yeah, Tom, I was just looking at the information. I have been away from all this finances. So I'm just looking that you have showed the combined losses of 2.2 million in 2019. And
Yes.
I'm looking at the FY20 budget for both the summary of golf clubs. The CA is projecting to lose 1.4 million. So it's a big difference between, I'm looking at 2,245,000 and 1,387,000. So I'm just wondering, what is the source of the information?
The source of my information is your fourth quarter financial report.
Okay, thank you. I'll check
Mr.
that.
Matthews?
So it's right down there.
Thank you, Tom.
This is the summary.
Next up, we have Ruth Avenbach.
Auerbach.
Thank you. Welcome, Ruth.
Okay, thank you. I'm Ruth Auerbach. I'm a resident of King's Contrivance. I'm here to talk about the climate emergency. And so let me first say a few words about how urgent it is. And these are the words of Greta Thunberg and her address to the United Nations, which I'd encourage you all to read or watch because it was very impressive. And okay, so she says, cutting our emissions in half in 10 years only gives us 50% chance of staying below 1.5 degrees Celsius. And that means temperature rise. And then she says, to have a 67% chance of staying below a 1.5 degrees Celsius global temperature rise, the best odds given by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the world had 420 gigatons of carbon dioxide left to emit back on 1 January 2018. Today, that figure is already down to less than 350 gigatons. That remaining CO2 will be entirely gone in less than 8.5 years. So that's to point out, if you only have a 50% chance if we act now, we have a 50% chance to, that's not a good chance for a 10-year window. So we should act now. And then I wanted to make the point that I'm sure you all know this better than I do, but my understanding is Columbia, if it were a municipality, would be the third biggest municipality in the state of Maryland. And so I believe that a statement, second, am I wrong? Okay, second. So I believe that a statement by the Columbia Association would be a wonderful statement for our residents and would, be influential to our representatives at the state level, at the national level, at the local level, everywhere. So I think it would be a wonderful thing. And then I also believe, as people said, everything that CA does should be analyzed for its impact on climate. I went to the Arts Festival this year, and the week before I had been at a similar festival in Amherst, Massachusetts. They had composting. They were doing things that we aren't doing here. And, could we make sure that all our food vendors are offering a vegetarian option? Could, make sure our vendors are operating with good practices environmentally, check out our vendors, everything we do. And then the last idea I had is, I don't know if this, I haven't read the charter for Columbia, but could we incentivize action by our residents through the homeowners association fee? Could we give a discount for putting up solar panels, for planting trees, something along those lines? I think that would be wonderful too. And those are my ideas. Thank you.
Thanks, Ruth. Any questions? Alan, any questions? Thank you, Ruth.
No, thank you.
Next up, Alyssa Neefield Bates. I'm not that good at names, as you can tell.
I'm not either.
It was close enough. I answered pretty much anything.
Welcome, Alyssa.
Anyway, yeah, it's Alisa Neifeld Baptiste, and resident of Oakland Mills. And I'm not going to repeat basically what everybody's been saying is how I feel. We have a lot of great environmental groups here. Everybody who participates in different ways. We have HOCO Climate Action, Beyond Gas, and CCL is Sabrina with Citizen Climate. Well, you know what it is. Thank you, Citizens Climate Lobby. But there's so many different factors that it isn't just one thing. We have to do everything, and so everything that we could do is going to be better than nothing. It was great that you guys signed on to the We Are Still In pledge, and we got a great group from that, helping Columbia. So I'd like to really push to sign on to the emergency declaration. By doing that, it sets everything else in motion. It's like a domino effect. If you look at it through that lens as it's an emergency, then everything you do should be based on, well, wait a minute, let me think about it. This is an emergency. We went, I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but I went to the Ellicott City Festival last week, and it was wonderful to see all those people, thousands of people there. But it also was disheartening to see all this plastic. I mean, and no composting, no recycling bins. Oh, they had them there, but it was full of garbage. Plastic water bottles, straws. I mean, my God, it was just really sad to see that in an Ellicott City where they've experienced the flooding due to climate change. It was just kind of, if it was an emergency, wouldn't we be able to say, okay, look, we're not going to have this plastic bottles. We can have water stations, which we would love to be able to see happen at events. Yes, people need water. My son came with us. I bring my water bottle. He didn't, but he wouldn't buy a plastic water bottle because he was with me. Well, what are you going to do? You can, you raise him. But that'll teach him next time to bring a reusable water bottle. But he wouldn't buy a bottle of water. But you couldn't find water there. There was nowhere to get water. And it's just those types of things that if we could implement, and if it was an emergency, we could have sort of that, in place. And that's why I urge you to sign on to that. To me, it's more than just a feel-good moment. It would really be something to implement.
Thank you. Any questions? Next up, we have Joel Horowitz. Joel? Of course. Welcome, Joel.
Good evening, Joel Horowitz from Harper's Choice. In case I get to comment, I guess most of you know I'm on the village board. But I'm speaking for myself. It's nice that you're considering the climate resolution. We've come a long way from when I came before you to try to originally sign on to the We Are Still In, and it took a couple times to get that, and you didn't like my detailed resolution of just saying all the great things you've already accomplished. So I guess there's hope for one day convincing you to fix some of your other things I've been bringing before you. technical matter on page 2 of the resolution, the first, now there be it resolved, I find it, I guess a typo, an incorrect clause. It says that a climate emergency threatens our community. I really feel that should be climate change threatens the community. You know what? It could be read that just declaring a climate emergency threatens the natural world, or it's sort of like having a fire management plan saying that causes fires. So I hope you will correct that. Mainly, I find you've done a lot with the plastics are listed in your accomplishments and the promotion dealing with the swim bags. So you're wringing out most of the plastics that CA uses. As the prior person talked about, I think you should improve the event recycling, and apparently we still need to have the county approve its rules for event recycling. But mainly I'd like you to deal with your strategic plan, which says you're going to be an environmental sustainable leader in Maryland, and that your objective is, one, is to maintain and advance CA's climate change mitigation adaptation efforts, and step D is to work to reduce fossil fuel consumption associated with its vehicle and equipment fleet and encourage similar practices in its contractors. So what exactly are you doing to do that? And I would suggest that you make a policy decision that you're going to phase out any new purchases of internal combustion equipment, and that they either be electric or at least a hybrid or other alternatives for your cars, trucks, utility carts, golf carts, lawn equipment. And as I mentioned earlier, Dennis, back there somewhere, that if he cannot find a sufficient one, because a electric chainsaw is probably not, they don't operate very well, that if because of cost, power, performance, or longevity, that the staff says that they can't find one that's going to meet your needs, or that you approve a purchasing exception for that. But make it a policy that you're going to phase it out unless there's not an appropriate one type of equipment that will work.
And thanks, Joel. Any questions for Joel? Alan? Thank you, Joel.
Nope.
That's all I have on my sign-up sheet. Is there anyone else? If not, I want to thank you all for coming out tonight.
Andy?
Yes.
Andy? I have a question I'd like to ask everybody who spoke, and you don't have to use a vocal answer, but, and I'm not saying this is the only way to do it, but I'm just sort of data gathering here. If people could stand, if they would be willing to pay an additional, if they would support a raise of some kind in our annual assessment in order to pay for some of these modifications and needed changes in order to meet this climate emergency.
Well, right. There's a lot of things that would go along with that, though. But thank you.
Andy, can I just make one comment? Thank you so much.
Andy, I asked a question. I'd appreciate getting an answer.
Oh,
Everyone
they stood up. I'm sorry.
Oh, they did. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Alan. Yes. The crowd stood up.
We're taking names and we're going to raise.
Thank you. I was just having a little trouble seeing. Sorry. I'll get new glasses.
Rafia.
Yeah. First of all, I wanted to thank you all, and I know that what a universal emergency it is. It's for not just for us, for the entire nations. And I really think that we should do everything everybody has said here, as well as we need to really, to me, I know money is a big motivator, and we need to go after legislations that there should be new laws that whoever the producers of these plastics, single-use plastics, should be paying a hefty penalty and to take care of this thing. And I think once the producer would have to pay the penalty, they will stop. They will find better ways. They will find some alternative ways for all of us. And I think we really need to kind of look at a much bigger and go at where it will really make a big dent. Thank you.
All right. Good. All right, we're going to move on here. What I would remind the board members is that when you speak, if you would bring the mic closer, it would help.
There's just one quick thing. So the audience doesn't think the rest of us aren't interested. We've got a really long agenda, so we're trying to be polite about not all of us taking a chance to say something. So I don't want you to think because we're quiet, we're not. Okay.
All right, we're on to reports and presentations. Financial reports. So the first quarter financial report and the first quarter financial statements were reviewed by the audit committee. So would the audit committee anyone on the audit committee like to?
So the audit committee went through. The audit committee went through the entire financial statements, and so I move that they be accepted.
We don't need to.
Okay. So it has been reviewed by the audit committee members.
So does anyone on the board have any questions? Sorry.
I do. I just wanted to ask a question about, in the report, when it talks about donor restrictions. Can that be explained? I was not able to get to the audit committee meeting, so I would appreciate just getting some explanation about
which page? Which page?
On the page number 2.
Which page?
So it's page number 2 of the statement, the financial statements. So that's the document that was
Susan,
attached as part of your agenda materials. This and item 6A2, page 2, the statements of financial position. Net assets without donor restriction.
Yeah.
That means net asset without donor restriction. There are none of the assets were donated, so there couldn't be any restrictions. It's just the language that GAAP requires.
Okay. Because I think that's something that's a little different from what I've seen before, and I just didn't know what it was referring to.
Yeah, it's a fairly recent change for nonprofit financial statement presentation.
Okay, so it's an accounting type of designation.
Yeah.
Okay, and I just had one other question, if I may. Under repairs and maintenance, under the administrative line, it appeared that there was a rather large difference, a variance between 2018 and 2019. I understand some of the repairs and maintenance issues about open space. Certainly, we've had quite a year with open space. But the one under the administrative line, I didn't quite understand.
So the repairs and maintenance, that includes software maintenance or other some agreements in there. So I think that's what is in there. Give me a second.
The Fairway Hills Bridges.
Okay. Because it was, at least by my calculation, it was about 108,000 increase. I didn't think all of that would come under programming, but if it did.
It is. So this is, it's IT related. It's annual renewals for software subscriptions. It's just included as maintenance. It's software, the agreements that we have to pay, those subscriptions for software. And the difference is timing related. It depends on when we pay.
So some of those are not annual, some of those.
They are, most of them are annual, but it depends on when we pay them. And we may not have spread them properly through the year, but it doesn't indicate any issue with something that needed to be repaired. It's the timing of the software licensing.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Susan.
Any other questions?
Can I ask a follow-up question, ma'am?
Sure. Yes. Yeah, Alan?
Why are software licenses and that sort of thing not under fees? It seems like the kind of repairs that we do are very different than paying a fee to maintain a software system.
I don't really know. The way that the chart of accounts is set up, that those are considered, they're part of a maintenance, so we have them in with maintenance, other maintenance expenses. We can look at moving them to fees.
They can be reclassified.
I don't know what difference it makes, really.
Just reclassify them, that's all.
Well, I would
like
want
to try to
more thoughtfully and make sure that makes sense and that we would move things around properly, but we can look at that if that's an issue for the board.
Dick?
I'd appreciate that. It just makes it hard to to get a handle on sort of hard repairs as versus this kind of annual fee?
Well, you can
Thank
see
you.
those are clearer by looking at the other departments. As you would expect, there isn't much in administrative services that's a hard repair, but the other departments are very clear.
Dick.
Okay.
In the audit committee meeting, there were a couple of suggestions about the 990, a couple lines being changed. Has that been done?
Yeah, that's another
That's the
agenda
next
item,
item.
and
That's
I'd be
another
happy
agenda
to
item.
walk you
Okay,
through
I
that.
just- part of this too.
You just want to move the agenda along real fast.
A long night.
All right, any other questions then for financial reports? Then let's move on to the dashboard quarterly membership update. Milton, anything you want to say?
No. Susan, Dan?
So you have received in advance the dashboard, and it should be familiar to you. We did not make any changes this quarter. The first page of metrics are financial metrics, and again, to remind the board, these are metrics that you've established that you want to see on a quarterly basis, so we're providing those. There's not, did not observe any dramatic changes. If you have questions about them, we'd be happy to answer them. We did add back earlier in fiscal year 2019 the metric A1A, that is just a different presentation for the membership accounts receivable balance. And that was in response to board member questions.
That looks like a dramatic difference. Am I not reading this right?
No, it was a dramatic difference. We did make some changes in the previous quarter, and we reported on those back at the time that there was a change in work that we had done to clean up the accounts receivable balance.
That's great.
The advertising effectiveness report is updated by the communications and marketing team. And at the bottom is an area of interest to the board frequently is the membership market share. If you note at the bottom, we have seen growth in significant growth, obviously in Columbia Cards, which is not a membership and does not drive significant revenue. We have increases over the last fiscal year in Columbia resident memberships. The residential units are updated annually. We get that information from Howard County Planning and Zoning. And so our market share, even excluding Columbia Cards, has increased, and we are happy with that and hope that that continues. I feel like we're on a good trend, doing better there. And part of our, you can see that as definitely the Columbia Cards has increased dramatically, and that is something that we believe impacts memberships as well, because it does provide people an option for limited, as ad hoc use, I guess, of the facilities. And then Dan, would you want to speak about the Clara Bridge?
Any questions for Susan before we switch over to? Okay, Dan.
So as you can see from the report on the Clara Bridge surveys, we continue to have another good quarter. This is our second quarter in a row where we've been around that 40% mark. If you recall, when we started this journey in 2016, I think our Net Promoter Score is like 32. So this has been a pretty significant rise. The clubs, the 3 fitness clubs, did take a little bit of a hit, not much, but a little bit because of the renovations at Supreme. Anytime you do renovation work, that shows through. But all the other facilities saw increases, particularly in golf. We've had a very good summer in golf, finally, after last year. Wasn't so friendly. The effort score, which is a new score that we track, started tracking a few months ago, which gives us a general indication of, as people are talking and writing their verbatims, how they feel, how easy or hard it is to do business with us. And in the previous quarter, we actually saw a rise in that score, a decrease in that score, which means people felt it was easier to do business with us. And that's what we want to continually work on. That's what we consider a leading indicator that would, if that score gets worse, that means our net promoter scores are probably going to drop in future surveys. Interestingly, on the gender mix, we saw an increase in both male and female responses. This is the first time they've actually kind of correlated. Usually one goes up and one goes down. It's been interesting watching the gender gaps. And with age, consistent trend. This one doesn't change much, but this is kind of the standard curve that you see across the industry. As the age group rises, the net promoter score tends to rise. So our senior members tend to give us the highest net promoter scores, and the youngest members tend to be in the bottom couple age categories. They bounce around a little bit, but it is a curve up. Definitely interesting to look and see that and the differences within the age groups. The 0 to 24 age group, really it's 18 to 24 because we don't survey under 18. Really focused on some of the pool stuff. The 35 to 44 talked about conditions at River Hill Pool, but had high praise for Kendall Ridge Pool. And the 65 plus age group focused on renovations and equipment at Supreme and Columbia Gym, and then fees at Hobbits Glen. But it's really given the team insight into how to begin working and specifically targeting improving the experience for these different age groups. Any questions?
Well, the one thing I noticed that what was good was that on your word chart, little red, much less red than in some of the past. So that's good because it means that the conversations are turning.
Yeah, the last two surveys have been really, really good. Yeah. We have a much more significant renovation at Supreme this time, so we'll see where that goes. But the last two have been very strong, which, I mean, I think we got some really goodwill coming out of the athletic club renovation. And then the improvement in the golf courses from all the damage from the weather and the flood last year really jumped us up.
Any questions for Dan? Alan, any questions?
Nope.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Susan. All right, we'll move on. Well, the minutes are already approved because we did approve the agenda. Move on to board votes. So the next thing coming up is the president's strategic initiatives. I'm having problems with my words tonight. So hopefully you all had a chance to review them. Milton, anything you want to?
Well, first, I apologize. I didn't get them to you until last evening, but basically I captured the three areas that we had talked about, the board and me, with being strategic priority number 2, resource stewardship, strategic priority number 4, leadership development, and strategic priority number 5, advocacy. The note that I have under strategic priority number 2, resource stewardship, I asked that I come back to you at the meeting in December with some steps, because this is an interesting effort, and I just need to get some help with this.
Yeah, excuse me, which page in the packet are we looking at?
38 of 84
38 of 84.
or 37?
Okay, my packet has 74 pages in it. Was there a new packet?
Yes. Janet sent out an email saying there was a new packet.
I'll access it. Thank you.
Yeah, the new packet has the strategic initiatives and the President's report, right? Oh, yeah. Yeah, there were some updates, and there was an email that came out. Okay, I thought someone over here had a comment. Oh, what does the board think? I'm hearing total silence. Ginny?
I love the first, well, let me get back. That's okay. Janet has an obstacle course back here that gives me a lot of exercise. I like number 2, basically website, making the website more user-friendly, searchable, et cetera.
Well, Jenny, this is not number, that's
Well,
resource
strategic
stewardship.
priority number 2, resource.
That's not website. This is creating a database.
Well, that you will be able, the residents would be able to use?
No.
No.
This is for the board.
This is for the board. The board first.
Okay.
We need to start. We're
So
gonna
let
do
me
this,
go
we never
to
start.
the strategic priority number 5, advocacy. Basically, the new town zoning. I think that's phenomenal. That's something I think we all like and agree with. After that?
Sorry.
Yeah, I think, I appreciate your following through on the discussion that we had previously. I think where Newtown zoning is concerned, that we really need to spread our net wide. And that's one of the things as you zero in on specific tasks, as far as a consultant or firm with extensive experience in community planning.
Right.
We can be looking nationally. There are lots of planned communities around the country. In fact, I was just looking into one in Florida, Babcock Ranch, and talking to someone. They are an all-electric community, and they are a zero, they don't use any fossil fuel. Everything is electric, and they own the battery storage facilities that power everything. That's a very interesting idea that obviously did not exist when Jim Rouse was looking at this community. Maybe he would have dispersed those batteries into our 10 villages. There are all kinds of interesting things that have come up recently, particularly where environmental issues and environmental vulnerability is concerned. So these are the kinds of things that cutting-edge planners can bring to us as we are trying to re-envision what we want Columbia to be for the next 25 to 50 years. So let's spread our net a little further than we perhaps have in the past and really bring in some of these experts that are both national and international.
Renee, can you? Yes, please.
So can I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying. I like number 5, but I look at it predominantly as a zoning and land use educational type of issue. I also think that what you're bringing up is the environmental issues, the climate change, plastics, all of that. And to me, that's a separate issue over and above this. So I'm looking at number 5 as if it pertains to Howard County, CA, developers, mixed use, including making Howard County more amenable to for businesses. And then I'm looking at the environmental issues. I think they're so important that they warrant their own strategic priority. Am I understanding you correctly?
I'm just trying to focus on some of the planning issues, some of the city planning issues,
Right.
and some of the land use issues now that that are linked to these newer ideas and realizations about what the impact of city planning is.
Okay.
It's a different kind of ball game now.
Right.
So I agree with you to that extent. The other thing that I noticed here is that there's nothing in here that actually says Newtown zoning.
That was intentional. Because remember, when we talked about it, we said that we don't want to get caught up. We don't want to get caught up in the term or are inhibited by the term of Newtown zoning. We're trying to we want to work with a consultant or a firm to come in, and we want to look at the principles and the concepts of the planning principles of Newtown zoning, and look at new approaches that we can take to the future. When we look at the update of the comp plan and so forth, here what we're talking about. One of the things we said we're going to emphasize, or at least I was looking at, is that I think sometime, in my opinion, we spend a lot of time trying to defend or define why Columbia is different. Well, I look at it from the point of view that Columbia was planned to be different. And so that's kind of the way we look at it, is that we're going forward. How can we look at how Columbia was originally planned to be different, those concepts that made it different from the beginning, and take them forward without using the term or relying on the term of Newtown zoning? Because you remember, we have no control over zoning.
Janet, sorry.
So I just wanted to agree with Sherry. I think that much like in building design or city planning, any of these things, to build sustainability in at the beginning is so much easier and more effective than trying to retrofit it. And so if we're looking at new regulation for zoning or new possibilities for zoning, the time to think about those impacts are at the beginning of that process. And so that those can be considered as we move forward, and if we consider zoning in terms of creating opportunities for increased environmental sustainability, be that, battery charging, solar power, I think CA is uniquely positioned to drive this effort, and the best time to do that is at the beginning. I think there are lots of opportunities to apply environmental, sensibilities in a lot of different areas, but this is a really critical one as we move forward and as we reimagine what could happen going forward. I think it's really important for us to include that.
Ginny, and then Milton.
Andy, could I get in the queue, please?
Okay. And what I really like is where you put that we are going to be looking at land development and redevelopment, because there are areas where it will be new development, but there are a lot of areas where we're really looking at, as Janet said, reimagining what could be there. So I think that's good. And I think one of the other issues is a lot of confusion with Columbia residents about the difference between covenants and land use zoning. They tend to mix them. So I think this process would clear that up. And I like the idea of it going to be an open process so that people can come and listen to these experts, speakers that have ideas about different ways of doing things. And the end result, I hope, will be several options available to CA staff and the board, so that we will not be reacting to the county, but will be more proactive, which would be great.
And the one thing also I want to emphasize, if you read, I was trying to be very descriptive in the term. I was saying that with extensive experience in community planning principles, remember, if you go back and think, and this is my take on it, and I spent a lot of time looking at, Mr. Rouse's vision was based on community planning principles that ended up in the Newtown zoning that was passed by Howard County. So this is what we want. We want to talk about community planning principles and how they can be translated into zoning and regulations.
Okay, Alan, and then Ashari and Lynn. Alan?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I guess a couple comments. One small one is, I guess, the leadership development, and that's for holding an event is an initiative. It feels like an action to me. And so that feels small.
Hey, Alan? Alan?
He's breaking up.
Alan, you're breaking up. Alan, you're breaking up.
Alan, you broke it.
Is this any better?
Yes.
Is this any better?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm concerned that the event forum for number 4 feels more like an action rather than a strategic initiative. I would like to see that beefed up some. Overall, I'm concerned that that the evaluation of all of these are simply in doing the actions rather than moving the needle on any of the activities. There's a little more specificity in number 5, but even still, it's just to determine that the number of what they're going to be, so it's just actions. The thing I'm most concerned about is that we make, and I think I'm agreeing with Shari and Janet on this, I think, if I understood what you were saying. I'm concerned that if there's plenty of people who have experience in community planning and master planned communities, but not master planned communities such as Columbia. And in my understanding, almost every master planned community is planned mostly around the physical structures, the physical layout, and finances, and not around the kind of values that Columbia was founded on. And that was, to me, Rouse's unique take. It's not just community planning principles, but what does it take to be a community? What does it take to be a place that nourishes people, et cetera, et cetera? And I guess I'm not sure a consultant is going to have that, and I'm not sure that a consultant helps us with our advocacy, unless it's really geared toward pointing us to what we want to advocate for. And if that ends up being the outcome, I'd be pleased. I'm done.
Shari, Lynn, and Milton.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think what you're saying, Milton, is interesting, but I hope that we don't lose sight that the board has already done a lot of work. We have, potential position papers. We have a lot of other training that the board has gotten in the zoning area specifically around Newtown zoning. So whatever this is has to attach somehow to that. It's not really a completely separate blue sky new idea. And so I think in terms of your discussions with whomever, you can certainly say the application of land use and zoning regulations linked to Columbia's Newtown zoning. And that will give whoever it is an opportunity to become familiar with, study, get some idea of what those basic principles have been, and link whatever they've got to it.
To me, that's implied, because you see, I state down here, specific to a master plan community such as Columbia. And so when I hire a consultant, the person, you're going to give them information about Columbia. I'm going to give them Mr. Rouse's books. They will be familiar. There's no one out there, I believe, that has been in community planning for any length of time has not heard about Columbia, Maryland.
Lynn.
I'm looking at the time frame here, and again, it sounds like the information sessions will start just as the next board begins. Is there any way? I mean, I think these sessions could be very informative and helpful for more than the board. Is there any way that this could be offered to the community in some way also?
I haven't looked at it.
Now,
Let
I
me
realize it's
find
different than
a
what the
consultant
initiative
first.
was,
You're getting ahead of yourself. Let me find a consultant first, and we can go from there.
And let me tell you, we are going to follow our procurement process. So I mean, we're not going to just kind of pick one. Well, we'll make sure that we follow the procurement process. Rafael.
Yeah,
Milton, Milton, anything else you want to say?
Okay. Well said, Milton. I agree with you all, but I also totally agree with where Sherry started. I really think that the consultant is not just going to be, we need somebody who is also looking absolutely, with the with the realization of the urgency of this sustainability and all that. So we really want to bring some great ideas. This is the time when we can step back. I think if we don't change, we are going to be a dinosaur, really. I think that we need to and bring the latest ideas and incorporate. So what you're saying is, I agree with you. And I think that we want to make sure, but that consultant is not just a,
That's why I use a very generic term, community planning principles. That can mean anything, whatever the community wants.
Thank you.
All right, anything else? If not, is there a motion to approve these strategic initiatives?
I just want to say one thing.
Okay.
That the strategic leadership, the leadership development, that priority number 4, the whole idea was to involve the villages specifically.
No, that was not what I got the impression was that for...
Well, it says the benefit of diverse leadership within the community groups, including Columbia Association and the village associations.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's the type of forum that I would set up where you look at, we'll look across to attract individuals from across the community and talk about, share with them the benefits of and why we should have diverse leadership within community groups, including Columbia Association and the Villages Association.
Right. I'm just...
You're just reiterating that the villages have to be included.
I am, right, because it's essential the villages are included. The whole idea was that years ago, there used to be an annual event with stakeholders and CA, the stakeholders being the village associations specifically. And there were opportunities then for the CA staff and the village organizations to get together and communicate, participate, get to know one another, and to learn various things about Columbia that many people have no idea about. So I was hoping that it would lean in that direction.
But this
to
is
include
not
other people, that's wonderful, but
it's about across the community and talking about diverse leadership of community groups. It's not a forum on Columbia's history or anything like that. The direction is that if you look at the strategic initiative, it's about leadership development.
Right. And leadership development coming most often, people come to the CA board from the villages.
Nancy, it's not going to be one-sided. It's going to be about community groups.
Okay, Jen.
I assume this would also mean diverse leadership in committees, et cetera?
Well...
No, I mean in terms of that's the goal, is to have more at CA boards, village boards,
we're going to just talk about diverse leadership among community groups.
Frankly, I'll be honest, I sort of half-heartedly support this because I'm not sure what we're going to really accomplish, but okay. I mean, no,
it's
but anyway.
From what I expected.
So I'm interested in hearing more about action number 1 because it says determine the most logical community part. Oh, sorry, I missed the S. Okay, so that was my first point, but you can scratch that one. The second thing is, I think to Nancy's point, so I know that when I submitted my goals, I submitted one for diversity, and so I'm not sorry to see this, but what I heard from the board in the last work session was that they all wanted to focus on the villages. So, I mean, I do remember that, and so I felt like I sort of got voted down on that, so I think that's where Nancy's coming from.
But I have village associations in here. It says community groups such Columbia Association and the village associations.
Mm-hmm. So I interpreted this as meaning focus on attracting attendees who may eventually serve on the village board or on CA, not people from the village board.
No, so. I'm not talking about from the villages. I was talking about
that's what
across
I'm
the
saying.
Communities who would be interested in diverse leadership throughout community groups, the village associations, Columbia Association, so forth.
Yeah.
Lynn and then Shar.
Well, so I wanted to clarify that is how I interpreted it.
Right.
But I'm just saying that I heard from the board last time. I mean, I didn't necessarily agree, but I did hear the board saying that they wanted to foster the relationship with the villages, and they felt like that was more important. So that's the only reason I'm mentioning it.
Lynn and then Shar.
Yeah.
the villages are important, but again, if we are going to have truly diverse leadership, we really do have to go to, many different parts of the community that might not be attracted to to the village associations. They have to be included, yes, but there's so much more. So, I'm very comfortable with that.
Sure.
So I'd like to hear an example of other potential partners.
Right off the top, I was thinking about Leadership Howard County. That was one entity that I was looking at reaching out to. I could reach out to the community college. I haven't talked to anyone. This is just presenting it to the board. I thought it would be better, as opposed to CA going it alone, if we could find others, because I know there's others in the community groups that are interested in diversifying, not just the leadership of their groups, but the membership of their groups.
Okay, so again, I think if you could come back to the board with some more specifics about that, maybe it just needs to be broken down a little bit more. I think what we're reacting to, and I'm feeling the same way, Janet, is that we talked very definitely about fostering relationships with the villages, because that is something that we feel has kind of been lacking in the last couple of years. And so returning to that as a principle, that we're going to do something that really focuses on the villages and encourages people, given our structure of being villages, to rise up from the grassroots within those villages. That makes a lot of sense to me. If there are other kinds of groups, some of whom that you're mentioning now, that we do connect to through our stakeholder dinners and other kinds of mechanisms. So I think I would have a much clearer idea of what this leadership path might look like if we could just get some more specifics around that.
But Catherine, because I'm reading it very differently, and this is what I don't quite understand. Action 1 is he's basically saying CA is not going to do this by itself. It's going to find partners to put on this activity. Mm-hmm. But the activity is going to be focused on increasing diversity, of which one of them would be increasing diversity, how to increase diversity at the village level. Mm-hmm. But the first action is partnerships with other people instead of CA doing it all by itself.
Basically, all I'm trying to do is put together a forum where we can bring we can invite attendees from across the communities that's talking about all demographics, all cultures, and then introduce them and have a discussion about leadership among the community groups in the community, including the Village Association, including Columbia Association. No, I was not specifically talking about developing a relationship with the villages. It was my understanding we were talking about leadership development for community groups, including the Village Association.
Okay, Jenny was next. And then
yeah. I said this 2 weeks ago, and I think the real test for the CA board that a lot of you want is in terms of our developing better relations with the village boards and their staff is the neighborhood centers. And the process where we met with the managers and the village chairs, 2 weeks ago, Andy, your meeting? I've gotten a lot of positive feedback on that. I think it's crucial. That's our test. That's our test case. And we are going to be tested on that. What are the next steps in terms of showing they're involved in the neighborhood center thing, they're going to be, the date for the next meeting, et cetera. So I think we're already doing that. It's how well we're going to do it and whether we have a process, and we have not specifically spelled out that process. To me, that's separate from this because we're already in the middle of that. But it's exciting, and we just need more work on that.
I have a concern. I think that the way the goal is written for diversity is perfect, for leadership is perfect, but fostering the relationship and reestablishing the trust with the villages by itself needs its attention and it's one separate strategy. That's what we want. Having that one meeting with the village board for us is not what it is. The relationship is so extensively bad that, many times we all cannot accomplish the goals we want to together can do a better job. We can do a better job serving all the villages, which is our community, which is Columbia community. So I think that there are, where I wanted to see is the president being very proactive, not the board, not us, but president being very proactive and establishing this relationship, having those meetings on a regular basis with their team. I'm not saying that you're not serving different boards. They are separate organizations, but our relationship is very interdependent. So what I like to see is that what I didn't at the time extensively, I like those being as part of a separate strategy under whichever category you want to put. Thank you.
Nancy.
I agree that we had a first step when we met 2 weeks ago, but that was a first step. I don't see a plan for anything further, and I think that is critical because the villages, it's been an ongoing issue for years. It needs to be resolved. The diversity issue and leadership is a lovely thing to go ahead with. I have no problem with it, but the focus and one of our initiatives is specifically to develop a better relationship between CA and the villages. And unless I see that, I'm not happy.
So I'm going to put my name in here. Okay, we have talked about a better relationship between CA and the villages. But in my experience, it has got to start with the board. It's the board who's got to lead the effort. It is not going to make it. It is not going to make it. I mean, we've been through this for 5 years. The board has got to step up. This is the same thing with, the neighborhood centers. It had to kind of start with the board. And I see the same thing. And that's what I worry about, that the board has got to take an active role if it really wants to improve the relationships with the village. And I did send out an email just to kind of give you some of my thoughts in that. But I really think if we want this done, the board has got to shoulder some of the work. It's not going to happen.
I don't think I disagree with you.
Could I get a few things, Andy?
Sure. Rafia and then Alan.
Okay. I just want to say that the board is here to provide a leadership. And we are saying is that this is a very needed relationship between CA and the villages. I understand board can do what we did, that one, meeting we had and so forth. But how are we getting into this management of things? You are telling us that we need to manage the relationship with the villages. And I'm saying that is the relationship, that is the responsibility of the leadership of management.
Alan?
Yeah, I'm going to say basically the same thing. It's the board's responsibility to set direction and tone, and sometimes that means direct action, such as when we had our Columbia Talk CA Listens event, and that's the meeting you had a couple weeks ago. But the operational part is supposed to be done by the folks who are responsible for operations.
Anything else? All right. Is there a motion for the initiatives?
I move to accept strategic priority number 5, advocacy.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor? It is approving strategic priority number 5. Alan?
Aye.
All right. Is there any other motions? How about the first one?
Yeah, I was going to say.
I was going to say. Yeah.
What was the vote, please?
All right. There's a motion. Janet moved to approve priority. And Ginny seconded.
I didn't hear which one.
Strategic
What was the
priority
vote on
2.
five?
Two.
Unanimous.
Number 2.
Thank you.
So Janet moved and Ginny seconded that we approve strategic priority number 2.
Resources.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Alan?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. Anything else? All right, well, we got 2. I mean, we got at least 2.
I move that
I'm looking.
I move that we table strategic priority number 4 for a rewrite to be presented at the next work session,
Work session or
whatever's
board
next.
meeting?
But
All right,
we have to talk about it.
we'll bring it back, yeah.
To bring it back.
All right. Okay,
I'll second this.
that's okay. All those in favor of just tabling to the next?
Wait, discussion?
Discussion? Alan? Well, no, it's a motion to table. We don't really discuss table. I'm sorry, we just have to vote.
Where's our lawyer?
Well, we can't table it because there was no motion to table.
There was a
Yeah,
motion.
yeah, Renee moved. I'm sorry, and I thought Jenny seconded. Janet seconded, sorry. Yeah, Renee moved.
No, wait a minute.
There's no discussion on the table.
And Janet moved the
You
second.
can't, wait a minute. I don't think you can table an idea.
Okay,
You can only table a motion. And since there was no motion to accept it, we can't table that motion.
Sherry?
Okay, so we have to make a motion.
right,
Without
make a
discussion.
motion, right.
Okay, so I move reluctantly
Okay.
to accept priority number 4.
All right, is there a second for that?
I have
Dick
some
seconded.
discussion.
Now we can discuss it.
All right, well, now Renee
have
made her
some discussion.
motion.
Let him discuss it and then I'll go.
Okay, Alan, you want to discuss?
Well, my discussion is, it is within our power. I think waiting a full month just puts us way farther behind the 8 ball. It's within our power to either modify our rules to allow a specific issue to come up for a vote at the next work session, as long as we're clear what that is, or to schedule a short meeting in addition to the work session that same evening. I would hate to see this go another whole month.
We can cross that when we get to the, I mean, if you guys want a short board meeting after the
We
next
can't
work
cross it if
session.
we say we're going to table
we
it
can
until
get-
the next meeting.
So, all right, so I move
Right.
to table strategic priority number 4 to a board meeting to be held
After the work session.
after the work session on October
10th.
10th.
October 10th.
I second it.
Okay,
But we didn't vote on the original motion.
You don't have to.
because you have to, because we move the
Once it's
table.
tabled? Okay.
Table takes precedence. All right, all those in favor?
Of tabling.
Aye.
Okay. Got that one. All right. All right, IRS Form 990. I'm going to ask
I'm sorry,
Susan.
what,
if-
990? I'm sorry.
The 990, so I move, it has
Well-
been fully discussed. Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah, I was going to ask Susan just to,
presenting.
we did put out an amended,
Yeah, so at the audit committee meeting, one of the audit committee members, or a couple, pointed out some errors that needed to be corrected and made some suggestions to changing the form. So we corrected the errors. We made, and if you'd like me to walk through that, I can. We made some changes. So there were some that we didn't feel were appropriate as we dug into the instructions and reevaluated. So we have done what we think is appropriate from our understanding of CA and the form instructions. And also, Jackie Tuma is going to reach out to Mr. Edmonds and have him come in and look at he wanted to look at the financial statement crosswalk, and it's an enormous spreadsheet, so we will have him come in and look at that rather than try to share it with him in some way.
all right, so there were changes made, right? Anything you wanted to add?
So I move that the 990 be accepted with all the amendments and corrections which was made, recommended by
the audit committee.
Second.
Is that acceptable?
I believe it should be approved, not accepted.
Yeah, I was going to say approved.
Okay, so
Second.
Okay, so Rafia moved and Renee seconded. Any discussion? Any questions on it? All right. All those in favor then of the 990? Alan?
Aye.
Good. Wow.
Aye.
Thank you. All right. All right. Now we're on to board discussion. Climate emergency declaration. Milton, anything you want to? Do you want Jeremy?
Basically, it's a board discussion. I
Okay.
asked Jeremy to comment.
Jeremy's up in case we
you
have
have any
questions.
questions.
So I have two questions for you, Jeremy.
Yes, sir.
Also Milton. So I mean, I assume this fits in with all the activities that we've been doing in our strategic, our new strategic priority.
Yes, it does. It's sort of an extension. It builds upon our established sort of, environmental sustainability strategic plan.
And also, one of the things in my conversation with Jeremy, we wanted to make sure that the language that was reflected in here is within the purview of the Columbia Association. We wanted to keep in mind that we can proclaim, but there's certain things we can do and we cannot do. And we are doing a lot. And so there's a difference between advocating and being able to do or having the authority to do. And that's what we wanted to make sure is captured in here.
Okay, so then the next question I had.
Did I get the two, please?
Sure. Sure. Second question I had was, if we adopt this, any, I mean, impacts on CA in terms of anything we're going to have to do special or additional or that we don't know about or cost or, I mean, that type of thing. I mean, I guess if we approve it.
Sure. The only real extension in terms of a goal that's established is the net zero emissions by 2040. We as an organization have been game on the climate emergency for several years now. We've actually cut our emissions by more than half at this stage relative to our 2012 baseline. So we are well ahead and well down the road on achieving that goal. The 2040 target of net zero is in line with most major institutions and municipalities that have established similar climate change related goals. So that does give us 20-ish years to achieve that goal, to continue to work towards reducing our carbon footprint as an organization and then seek ways to offset anything that's remaining in terms of our carbon footprint that we can't directly reduce through other means.
Okay, Alan's next, and then Renee and Jenny. Alan?
Yeah, my question is basically going to be what you asked, Andy, so thank you.
Renee?
So I understand that we have about 20 years to go to zero, net zero. About what is the cost of that?
I ran a rough calc on this the other day. So where our carbon footprint is currently with what we have not offset and the current cost, current market rate of white tags, which are carbon offsets, it would be about $50,000 for us to offset all of our remaining emissions, scope 1 and 2, which are basically the types of greenhouse gas emission sources, to achieve a net zero status. So at the moment, it would be about $50,000.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Jenny?
Is that,
Jenny, and then Janet.
is that, I think Dixon, is
And then
that,
Dixon.
I'm sorry, is that 50,000 over a 20-year period or what?
Per year.
Per year. Per year.
At our current emissions profile.
Okay.
Now, ideally, we'll continue to reduce that as renewables come online, and we switch out of our sort of, as
Okay,
electric
but-
vehicles become more prominent and our footprint goes down,
Yeah.
that will likely go down as well proportionally.
Okay, but realistically, okay, there's a lot in here. And just so you know where I'm coming from, I'm very supportive of all of it. But realistically, if we don't quite achieve it, you're not going to go to jail, or we're not going to get fined, or we're not going to get,
No, it is a goal we're
foreclosure.
establishing for ourselves.
You get
yes.
to, like 2% or something. So, I mean, I'm not encouraging us not to aim for that goal. I'm just saying not to pass this because it might have it's not.
Yeah, well, and
It's unless it's an extremely serious problem where there's no way we can do this and it'll cost $1 million a year or something, and you really need to advise the board. You need to eliminate that paragraph or something. You're not saying that, right?
No. It's something that's viable. Again, it's in line
Yeah, okay.
with what other organizations of similar stature, and whether it's private sector or municipalities have. This is consistent with what other entities are doing, and this is what needs to be done.
Thank you. I just wanted to
address the
clarify that
problem.
you'll
Yes.
be okay.
Yes.
Well, we
Now,
knew,
on the record.
I'm sorry, I
on
was
the record?
we knew that in advance because I talked to
Right.
Jeremy and wanted
Yeah,
to make sure
I'm
that
teasing
we were
you.
okay.
You're doing
Okay.
a phenomenal job. I'm just
Yes.
teasing you. Okay.
Janet.
Yeah, I wanted to thank you, Jeremy, for your environmental leadership and for your innovative approach in looking for opportunities for CA to further
Oh,
its.
well, thank you for your
environmental-
support.
And I'd like to say to the board, you asked about the cost of doing it, but I question what is the cost of not doing it? It's time to act on this. Actually, it's way too late to act on this, but if CA is going to continue to be an environmental leader and encourage our county and state counterparts to follow suit, we need to show that we have skin in the game and that we are walking the walk. And so, I fully support this, and I think that it's absolutely critical for us to, not only move it forward, but make sure that we get the word out and we take that advocacy role very seriously, because I think, there's not time to waste, and there's not a cost bigger than,
Yeah, well, I would just like to reiterate that we have been game on this issue for
Absolutely.
several years now. There's 10 acres of solar panels in West Friendship, Maryland, that have been online. We're in our 5th year now of having that. So we have been aggressive on this for some time, and taking further steps is absolutely where we should go.
Okay, Dick is next, and then Shari. Okay, Shari.
I just wanted to say one of the costs that we may need to think about is how we communicate the things that we are doing as far as being a role model. I think one of the things we hear from the community, and I really appreciate the people who came here tonight, they're asking us to continue to be a role model. But to be a role model, you have to be out in the world doing things. You have to be demonstrating. I know that you often go to conferences. I really appreciate that, because that encourages other communities also to do that. And looking at Columbia with the size that we are, to be able to say to other communities, and you can do this too, if you choose to do some of the things that we are currently doing, that we're aiming for. Here are some of the continuing plans that we have, that's an aspect of being a role model. It may actually cost us in terms of going to conferences or having promotional materials or things of things of that kind, but that may be very worthwhile in the long run. So I think we just really need to think about that too. And the other thing I was going to say is we may have policies that we can take a look at and see whether there are small modifications that we can make that would beef them up even stronger. And so I think that's something else that the board has really taken a very strong stand with. I think that's something that we should continue to look at the next 6 months and into the next year, because the community has some good suggestions about that.
Renee?
I'm not sure if it fits under this resolution, but one of my concerns isn't so much what CA itself is doing, but what my neighbors are doing. In other words, the use of fertilizers and pesticides, et cetera, chopping down trees. And I guess my question is, what can we do as an organization to encourage our neighbors, our friends, our villages to be better stewards of the environment? Because while I see CA acting, I don't see on the most local level my neighbors acting.
Well,
Is it an advertising, I hate to use the word advertising, but is it an advertising or an educational campaign that we need to wage?
Well, I would note that myself on the energy side and my counterpart on the watershed side, John McCoy, are very aggressive in engaging the community as much as possible. Our fall calendar is already booked with the different village festivals. We were at the Wild Lake Festival last weekend, tabling and giving talks and engaging the community on energy and watershed issues. I have a community energy meeting on October 8th in the village of River Hill. I do them every quarter, where I promote energy efficiency and our solar cooperative, where residents are able to achieve a discounted price to install solar on their homes. So we are very aggressive. I think part of the challenge is residents are just saturated with marketing messages. I think it's 3,000 marketing pings every day is the average for the average person. So I think we are very aggressive in it, but it's looking for additional ways to strategically engage residents to get them to turn out. But it's just difficult. We are very progressive on it already, but more could probably be done too.
I also want to thank Jeremy very much, but I really want to go for a big time. I really want to find through Howard County and going and trying to, maybe you can help us with some legislative changes being introduced where, we can actually get the money from all those producers who are benefiting from this plastic to fund some programs at local levels. And I think I would like to really go more on that bang, that where we can make such a significant impact. If it's not going to be produced, it's not going to be available. It's not going to be that much of a problem. We can help from every way. Yes, we can do these little things, but let's go for legislation. Let's try to push this through all the way. I would like to see you are familiar with those processes, right? I'm talking to you, Jenny, that how can we get on board with Howard County and become the leader for the Howard County and then the state of Maryland and make that at such a level. I think if I'm here on the board, there were two things I wanted to do: amend the relationship, and this is the opportunity. If we really can make a difference in the world, I like to go all the way, and the big bang is going to come when you bring big legislation where the producers have to pay for the thing and things like that, and you will see how fast everything will start changing. Thank you.
I'd like to move that the board approve the climate emergency resolution.
Alan wanted to get in the queue. Just Janet and then
Before me?
Janet. Janet first, then Alan.
I'd like to move that we vote and accept the climate emergency resolution.
Second.
Alan. Yes, Jenny.
I'd like to make it an amendment. I just realized this.
Alan.
I want to ask, Jeremy, I want to ask the statements you've heard from the last couple of people as a question. You used the analogy, we've been in the game, where it's been game on for a number of years. If you could swing for the fences, what would you do that would really be the home run that maybe we haven't been bold enough to do?
Well, what I've been prioritizing in the last year or two is increasing our on-site renewables. We've had a nice sequence where our roofs have been replaced over the last couple of years, which is leading to opportunities for more on-site. So we've gone from having 2 on-site solar installations 3 years ago to now having 8 completed and 2 more in the plans or permitting phase. So we're about to have 10 solar photovoltaic systems within our building portfolio, which is fantastic. So That's one thing I'm really prioritizing. I think I'm looking forward to, as Joel mentioned earlier, looking at our mobile fleet. That's our next tough nut to crack. And the challenge is most of our vehicles are heavy duty diesel, and there are not really good alternatives yet. So I'm hopeful in the next couple years, 3 or 5 years, perhaps there'll start to be some alternative fuel or hybrid heavy duty vehicles that we can deploy. But that's the where I'm swinging for the fences now is more renewables on site within our building portfolio.
Okay, thank you.
Hold the question.
All right, no. First off, what I need is a motion to suspend the rules to allow a vote.
So moved.
Because
Second.
we have to suspend the rules.
Yeah, right.
All right, so Ginny moved and Renee seconded. Did you get that, Janet? Suspend the rules
To allow.
Vote.
of suspending the rules to allow a vote tonight.
I'll vote on this.
Yes, and I'm sorry,
Who?
who made the motion?
I made the motion, Renee seconded it.
Thank you.
All right, all those in favor? Alan?
Well, I guess I'm not sure why this couldn't wait. I mean, yes, it's important, and yes, I support it. And I'm not sure why we need to suspend our rules to make what would be different if we did this 2 weeks or 4 weeks from now. Are we missing an opportunity? I would prefer to use suspending the rules for things that are time sensitive. So I'm going to vote no.
Okay. Call the question.
All right. Any other discussion on? All right, let me go again. Now I have to take. Okay. Dick, Shari, Nancy, Lynn, Janet, Ginny, Raffia, Renee. I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
It's all those ours.
Okay. No. Alan?
This is just on suspending the rules.
Right.
Correct?
Just suspending the rules. Actually, Alan,
I'm voting no on suspending. I'm voting no on suspending the rules.
I will also vote no. Good. Your argument was good, Alan. All right, it passes though. So then we have the motion to approve the climate emergency resolution. That was made by Janet.
Okay.
And I forget, Shari seconded it. I got to get this straight. Okay. Any discussion on that? Jenny, you had.
No, I'm just ready to vote.
Ready to vote.
Oh, I thought you said you wanted an amendment.
No.
Okay, I'm
No.
sorry. All right, no further discussion. All those in favor of the climate emergency resolution? Alan?
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimous. All right, let's go on to single-use.
If I may ask.
Sure.
What are we supposed to do with this?
That was the easiest vote we've did.
All right, next item on the agenda is single-use plastics. Milton, anything you want to add?
Jeremy's still here.
Jeremy, I want to thank you very much for putting together the sheets. Yeah, it was good to actually see the plans we have. All right, so anything you want to add, Jen? All right, board members, anything? Janet?
Yeah, so as I look at my colleagues' 4 plastic bottles here, I think a seltzer machine for the boardroom may be in order. And I'm being dead serious. We already have glasses with water, but since seltzer is clearly preferred, or, carbonated water, then maybe we can get one of those.
A carbonated machine.
Yes, where you just replace the CO2 cartridges and not the whole bottle.
Why don't we just give them glasses and drop a salsa tablet in?
Well, you can sell that, Milton. I'm all for it. I bring my own.
First joke I've heard, Milton. That was good.
Jenny, you had.
Just Jeremy.
Anything else, Janet? Or?
But oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Thanks, Janet. I was hoping
Jeremy,
nobody noticed.
on your write-up here, just a quick suggestion. This is fantastic, the progress that CA has been making over the last couple of years. You guys are really great.
Yeah, this
But the one on reusable plastic water bottles and swimsuit bags, when you're saying, you know, you're going to do an educational campaign, messaging, et cetera, when you have an event, you might want to use, I don't know, I forget what they're called. I call them the plastic ladies, but it's the plastic less ladies or the less plastic ladies, whatever. They've always been offering to actually staff tables free, no expense to CA, and do educational programs. You might want to think about utilizing them.
Yes.
Milton?
Jenny, you know you can purchase a gym bag with a waterproof lining in it, right?
They're called dirt
I'm not
bags.
talking about that. I'm talking about they sort of, they're willing to provide educational things. They would hand out the stuff, you know, that you have. In other words, save staff time is what I'm getting at.
And get rid of the plastic bags for the swimsuits.
For
Yes,
sure.
that's what
We
I
have a
thought she was
centrifuge, it's
talking
almost
about.
dry anyway.
No,
by the time you
I'm
bring it
talking
back.
about, I think what he's saying here is at some event, you're going to have a table staff to give information. I'm just saying you might want to use volunteers that have been more than willing to help CA distribute educational stuff. I was just saving you money. Well,
But I
both
actually
ways,
think a
you're right, you're
reusable grocery bag would be well utilized by anyone who received it.
That's true.
At Costco, you don't get bags.
Jeremy wants to.
Yeah, I just wanted to note, I just compiled the information. A lot of these sort of progressive steps have been spearheaded by sport and fitness leadership who've been sort of really driving this. So Marty and Anish and working with our procurement staff have really looked to find more sustainable alternatives for our single-use plastics this year, and we've been making really good progress on it.
Right.
So I'm just reporting what other great work is happening in sport and fitness.
I just brought this in tonight. It says, I'm back. And I don't remember where I got this, but it says at least 80% of this bag comes from old plastic packaging. I don't know if you guys know anything. Eco Loop. And it says, this bag made from 94% minimum recycled plastic, of which a minimum 80% is recycled material, recovered packaging waste. If we are going to remove our bags for people who are swimming or in any of those places, might it be possible for people who are desperate for something to put their wet things in to have something like this where people could pay in for a bag that is at least a better kind of bag, or is compostable, or disappears, or is recycled, or something of that kind? I guess what I'm thinking of is some kind of interim step that acknowledges that not everybody comes along in the same way at the same time. So, for example, I'm thinking of being in the pool. There are mothers there with a lot of kids, with a lot of wet bathing suits and a lot of wet towels, and they really might need something until they get the idea that maybe it's better to bring something. So could we just kind of think about, and we can pass this around.
No, show it to.
Yeah, I think
Jeremy.
this program is still being developed to be rolled out, and I'm fairly certain it'll be an opt-in process where we're encouraging members to make the switch. I don't think it'll be eliminating the current option as much as providing, encouraging a better option for them to take at this stage. And Dan may be able to speak.
Okay.
I wanted him to see the Tesco.com.
Welcome, Dan.
Thank you. Actually, it will not be an opt-in program. In the middle of October, we're going to start a Healthy Planet, Healthy You usage program for the members that'll run from the middle of October through the middle of November. And basically, if you check into any of the 3 fitness clubs, Haven or the Swim Center, you'll earn points. And then at the end of the contest, the prizes, very easy to win, would be a water bottle or a drawstring backpack. Drawstring backpack to replace the wet bags, the water bottle to replace the cups, the non-hot drink cups. We'll still have cups for coffee and tea in those facilities. And then we will stop purchasing those items as we run out. So they'll be phased out. We won't be, so I guarantee by December, we will not have regular drinking cups or wet bags in facilities.
That's great news.
Could I get in the queue, please?
Alan, you're it.
Okay. I just want to say I fully support that. I would love to see us just make it possible for people to get CA bags, or even we could be a drop-off for plastic grocery bags, and people could pull one out and put their suits in. I mean, it's just, so thank you.
I guess if they already exist.
Janet.
This has not to do with CA's policy, but I just wanted to share something. My daughter goes to Duquesne University in Pittsburgh, and in the most recent Duquesne magazine, they have a group of students who are currently collecting plastics. They are breaking them down and blending them themselves, creating filament that they can then send through a 3D printer. So 100% recycled items that are then able to be recycled 6 or 7 additional times. Wow. They're creating like arm slings for carpal tunnel or something like that, and like plastic screws. So it's a really interesting, innovative thing. I've not heard anything about sort of like the 100% recyclable. So I just thought that would be an interesting story to share. So I applaud any efforts that we make to move us forward in this regard. I think that's great news, Dan. And, I think sports and fitness, unfortunately, is like the biggest target probably for this type of thing. But I also hope that CA will look at its events too, and just in terms of, how we can try to address some of the single-use plastics at those as well.
Any other comments? If not, thank you very much. Appreciate it, Jeremy. Appreciate it, Dan.
Thanks, Jeremy.
I would say get rid of the towels, but I know what would happen. I would say.
No.
Just
No.
get a big I think I heard about that disaster. I think it's a great idea.
All right, we're on to chairman's remarks. So you have it in hard copy. So two things to add, which came after I published the report. The first is yesterday I attended the groundbreaking for the Boys and Poets new restaurant, which will be in the Meriwether District next to the parking garage. Very nice. Lots and lots of people there, lots of politicians there. And Dick and Renee were also able to attend. A lot of excitement about it. I did find out that the goal is to start occupying the tenable building in the first quarter and to start renting the apartments, which are called Juniper, in the first quarter also. So things are moving along there. And then the other thing, I want to congratulate Milton on winning the award from the Daily Record for some of Maryland's most admired CEOs for nonprofits. But congratulations, Milton.
Well deserved.
So, any questions at all on my report? Nope. Ooh, okay.
I'll just say you missed Long Reach's flea market. It's October 12th.
I still have.
Which
Oh,
one
no. Yeah, that's right. Because October 10th.
Long Reach wide yard sale.
Right. I still have
October
time
12th.
because I have the report for October 10th coming up. Because we meet the 10th.
Turkey.
But you need to let people know way in advance. She's right.
Well, you had the October 21st date on there.
True. Yeah. There were a couple
It's
things I
only
did.
fair.
All right. I'll try to remember.
I'm just teasing.
And by the way, if there is anything you think I should report, I will be happy to take any of your emails because of the sources I use, I do occasionally miss things.
Yeah, I didn't think it was worth editing the documentation.
On to reports and presentations. President's report. So any questions from Milton? Ginny?
Yeah, on page 5, the county executives, Calvin Ball's Bee City thing. I've talked to Milton and Andy about this. You know my usual, if the county's going to do something, it really should be countywide. So my main concern is if there are public lands, I assume they're doing it on public lands, there are public lands within Columbia area. Let's make sure that we don't pay to have it done there or something similar, but that they do it. That's all. I want our fair share of county funds is the bottom line. It's a great idea.
I think that happens.
Well, let's make sure. B City, page 5.
Let's take it one at a time here, please.
It's,
Nancy?
it says opportunities. See?
Okay, Nancy?
I believe that happens. I mean, Dennis is back there, but I'm sure that.
Okay,
he's on
no,
top
if it
of
does, that's wonderful. I just want to get our fair share of the county money, since sometimes it winds up with, we pay, our people pay outside and inside, you know. It's a little thing I have.
Renee, you had some?
I guess I have are we eligible to get a beehive pollinator?
I'm not saying do it on CA land. That would be nice, and then we don't have to pay. That would be great. I'm talking about if there's public land in, like Blandair, public land in the Columbia, Newtown area, they should do it.
Oh, okay.
Blandair is one example. I'm sure there are many others where it's county-owned land. I just want to make sure the county doesn't go around Columbia and not do anything in Columbia on this great idea. I want our fair share of the money, that's all. It's really simple. But you're not going to, I just want to know we're getting it. That's all.
Wait.
I understand, I'm asking the question because I didn't know there was public land in Columbia. That's why I was asking the question. Okay.
Well, it's not on Columbia property.
Right, but I didn't know that inside are.
There are out parcels, many, and
Okay, I did not
open
know.
Howard County.
I did not know there were out parcels. That's why I was asking the question.
I'm sorry, and there's
There
like
are many.
Blandair Park, there's
Martin Road.
Yeah.
Martin Road Park,
Park.
yeah. Dennis knows where they all are.
Okay.
Maybe.
All right, any
it's not a
other
major thing,
questions
guys.
for the president?
Jeez.
Alan,
Yeah.
Alan?
I have two. One is, you mentioned, Milton, the new HRIS system, the Dayforce.
Yes.
I've heard from people that there's been some, I don't know whether I should put an adjective on it, significant or whatever, that there have been some challenges with that rollout. People being paid for things that they shouldn't have been paid for, et cetera. Could you speak a little bit on that, please?
Well, I can tell you that we're still working through it's a complicated system that we're installing. We're well past where we expect it would be. The biggest thing for us is that all the different categories of team members that we have. And so, yes, we've had some hiccups, but we have corrected them immediately. And the biggest thing for me, we don't make the mistake twice. And so, yes, we're progressing through it, but there has been some hiccups and some challenges.
Okay. Second point, this is, I don't know if it relates to a specific item in your report. I guess I just want to register and would love to hear others' thoughts. I'm very concerned that we have a policy that we don't pay our outdoor pool lifeguards and maybe other workers overtime when we do pay indoor pool workers overtime. And I understand that we're allowed to do that because the outdoor pools are only open a certain number of months in the year. I just want to register that just because we're allowed to do it, for me, is not a sufficient reason to do it. And I can't come up with an actual justification in my mind to do it. So I'd love to hear what other people think, and I'd love to hear if there is a justification besides the law says we can, and it saves us some bucks, therefore. I'd love to hear a justification why we do it.
Jenny?
He's waiting for an answer, isn't he?
There's silence.
So actually, I could say something because I have been there for a long, long time. We had this issue for years and years at that time, whereby we were not paying overtimes to the lifeguards. Obviously, Department of Labor, if it was, required, then we would have done it. Now, having said that, a lot of the lifeguards are dependent, a lot of them on the parents, et cetera, and so, they are making the summer money and all that. And there is a reason for the Department of Labor saying that for certain seasonal, employees, you do not have to. And that is one of the reasons. And the second thing, when you think about it, who is our lifeguards? 90% of our lifeguards are dependent, who does not have the same type of expenses like a full-time employee will be having or all year round employee will be having. And so I'm sure the Department of Labor have gone through a lot of these things and they have set it. And as is, there is such a significant subsidy for our outdoor pools, and because it is seasonal facilities. And if we are to, on top of it, beside meeting all the, labor regulations and everything, and we want to show our generosity and pay overtime, it's going to be significant impact on that. So finances of CA. So, that is something we really have to take into consideration. We all want to do the right thing, and I think it is the right thing. And I don't think that we are undermining or paying or, less than what we should. I do believe that CA is doing the right thing, and we are complying with all the laws and rules and regulations. Thank you.
Ginny.
Oh, I just want to congratulate the sales team on page 3, opportunities, corporate membership with MedStar. That's great, developing a model that you can use. And the other thing, also glad to see that we're participating in development of a e-scooter policy. We go to California, and they're all over the place. And there's a lot of problems in some communities because they didn't have regulations in advance, like where to leave your scooter, et cetera. So that's good.
Shari and then Dick.
In response to the question that Alan brought up and that Rafia just responded to, how often are we running into a situation where the lifeguards, the outdoor lifeguards, are being asked to stay over, in other words, over the hours that they have contracted for? Because one of the things you need to look at is that could be an indication that we don't have enough people hired to actually span the amount of time that the pools are open. So do we have any statistics on that?
I can't give you specific numbers, but what I can say, because we've had these conversations, it's primarily, the overtime primarily comes from the managers. The older kids that are in college, the pool supervisors, very rarely are lifeguards asked to work longer. Sometimes they do by choice if they want to, but very rarely are they asked. So the majority of the overtime comes from the more senior, older staff, not the actual lifeguards.
Are they paid
themselves.
the same amount as the lifeguards?
No. There's progressive steps. There's lifeguard 1, lifeguard 2, supervisor 1, supervisor 2, manager 1, manager 2, cluster leader. So there's a lot of different, so they can progress and work their way up through the ranks.
So they work their way up, but they don't get paid for overtime.
I think it should be clarified that they are paid for the hours at straight time, not time and a half. Was that clear to everyone? That it's not that they're not getting paid for those hours. If they're only working overtime at an outdoor pool, the the pay is at straight time, not time and a half. But they're not volunteering.
Okay, so if
their
they
time.
work an extra hour, when would they be working an extra hour? Because somebody else doesn't show up?
Possibly, or if they voluntarily picked up another shift. Sometimes, we typically schedule the lifeguards in 4-hour shifts or 5-hour shifts at the most. But they can, if I'm put in the system that I'm going to be out of town, Dick can go in and say, oh, I'll pick up another shift because I'm already going to be there. So sometimes they can voluntarily do it, but we typically only schedule on 4-hour shifts.
Dick and then Renee.
I like to work from facts. I think it would be helpful if we found out what the actual cost would be if we did pay overtime to the lifeguards. Let's see if it's a manageable number or not, and if it's, then we can discuss it reasonably. But I'd just like to say something about this comment that Rafi raised about these being kids who are living at home. A lot of these kids are saving for college or they're in college, and college is pretty expensive. Now, my son just graduated from college, and he has friends who are carrying as much as $60,000 in debt. And that's a pretty big burden for some kid just starting out in the real world with all the expenses of getting started. So I don't like that explanation that they don't need the money. They're not spending it all on popcorn and video games. A lot of them are saving pretty seriously. So I'd like to know just what it would cost us. And I agree with Alan that just because something is legal doesn't necessarily mean it's right. So let's find that out, and then I think we'll be in a position to discuss it.
Renee and then Milton.
My children were some of those people that worked overtime. My son worked several weekends from 6 in the morning for the swim meet until 9 or later at night on a Saturday. Okay, it was a second job for him. He volunteered. I get it, but it is inappropriate to think that you're going to use children as slave labor in this country. Okay, they are entitled to be treated the same way we would treat any employee
I think that's very
in this
strong, and I
country.
think that's inappropriate.
Yes, it is. It's wrong to make
I don't. I mean, if you want to
You're
debate,
right.
but
You are
I
right.
think respectfully,
You are right.
I think that's
You
a
are
very
right.
strong.
You are right.
Strong word
It is,
to be using.
You are right. But what
Because
you're doing
you
is
used
wrong.
voluntary and then
He
slave
did work
labor.
volunteer. It's just like when I
don't think
went
that's
to Stevens Forest one day, and the young lady was working at the pool all week and worked more than 20 hours of overtime, refused to work indoors because she claimed that if she did, she was the pool operator on staff, there would be no operator at that pool. Yet she's not paid overtime. It's not fair to treat these young men and women that way.
And yeah, just
Milton.
I also want to say something. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I don't want us to lose the sight that we have 23 outdoor pools. You're not going to find another community in this country, even going to the city of Dallas, to find 23 outdoor pools. And so right now, our biggest operating cost is compensation, is salary and benefits. And so CA, we talk about all the time how unique Columbia is. It's unique in a lot of ways, but when you start looking at 23 outdoor pools, we hire about 500 guards every summer. That's a significant impact to us. And so you're not just saying do it because we want to be kind of heart. That's a financial impact to this organization just simply because of the number of outdoor facilities we have.
Okay.
I just need to make one comment. I
And
don't
we're
want
gonna
anybody
cut off
to
the
think that I'm very, cold and I don't understand. Actually, my children work as well. When Dennis Matty used to be the head of the aquatics, my daughter worked, and she did not get overtime either. So I'm just telling not that because they did not get it. No, because I was saying that, as Milton just said, we have so many pools and we are providing the best outdoor pools in the neighborhoods, almost every other neighborhood centers, etc. And there is a cost. And what we can ask is to quantify how many kids would have been entitled for how many total hours of overtime. So let's quantify that. How many kids worked more than 40 hours a week for how many weeks? What would have been the total cost? But still, I would say that, you may not want to still, maybe at the end of the season, you give some other way to them, like a bonus, but do not please adopt this thing over and above the law. I don't think this would be right.
So
That's all.
we do provide annual incentives for all the staff at the end of the summer for working, for picking up shifts, for attending their in-service meetings. They are paid a bonus at the end of the summer if they achieve all these targets.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on. We're way out of time and kind of got off on track here. Let's go on to report from Ann Arbor Trust.
Oh,
Whitten.
That's not, we did it a little differently. We were in a situation that's in a state of flux, so we did.
I'll do half for you.
Great. Get some of these and.
What do you get? One.
So what you're getting is the first page of a report and some background information, you know, just by an email that Nina wrote, not for the board, but gives a good background on what the situation is. We have another page that is probably more appropriate for a closed session. So take a look. You can see the first part, you know, through number 5. It really is, again, what we've been doing, and I think you can see that we've been doing a lot of very successful events. We've really enlarged our audiences. Are you missing any? We have upcoming events that will finish the year. Hops and Harvest, the Mini Maker Fair, which I hope you will all come and see, and then our Winter Festival weekends.
Jenny?
Yeah. We just recently went to your last 2 events, and you guys are doing a phenomenal job. The trust and Nina and the staff really getting a lot more entertainment, a lot more people out, diverse groups of people out. I think it's fantastic. Congratulations, both of you two on it.
There have been some challenges, though, with some of the events that we're planning, and I think these are things that have to come to the board.
You have to.
I can hear myself over the loudspeaker.
Right. But I'm not sure if Alan can hear you.
Alan, can you hear me okay?
And Alan has a copy of this too.
Yes, it's fine. Thank you.
So I do think that there are things that the Inner Arbor board needs to bring to this board to discuss and to vote on, because there are things happening that are hurting Inner Arbor Trust. And anything that hurts Inner Arbor Trust, of course, requires CA to cover that cost, because, you know, this board has directed the Inner Arbor Trust to become financially self-sustaining. And so it's our fiduciary duty to ensure that Inner Arbor Trust has the opportunity to monetize, particularly their off-season, which begins October 31st through April 1st. And so it is very important that the Inner Arbor be able to monetize that time. And if they can't, then it results in CA having to pay more. So we should all be very interested in how and what is going on with Inner Arbor Trust, so that we can ensure that they can make as much money with their events as they are able to make.
Yeah, and I think you can see here that our issues, we spend an inordinate amount of time during the week, during every week at the trust, dealing with maintaining really sort of order and the standards in the park. It's a constant battle, I guess. There's no other way to say it. To try to impose the standards that are needed to keep the park in good condition, to keep the trees in good condition, to build out the park, and to make it a place for really the community. And that's really, we feel that is our mandate from CA. The Inner Arbor Trust was formed to build out an arts park, to program it and to give it activities, programs for the community. Many of them are free or very low cost. And I think in the 3 years that we've done this, we've been very successful, and it's getting better and better every year. This year, we had planned a winter event. This was going to be the first time that we were going to be able to do this. Prior to that, we had cooperated with Howard County General Hospital on the Symphony of Lights. You can see, and again, I think it's explained in more detail in this email from Nina, but we turned in a request for proposal from the hospital to, do a walking version of the Symphony of Lights. Our licensing agreement with the hospital in 2018 stated clearly that for the hospital, this would be the last Symphony of Lights that included driving in the park. And that was agreed to, and we assumed that that's what was going to happen. We were very surprised this year to find out that Brad Canfield was putting on a Symphony of Lights at the same time that we were planning to put our pedestrian community-based events. Our events are planned from 5 to 8, Friday and Saturday nights. We are partnering with the Community Action Council, with Girls on the Run, with other community groups. So they're an individual series of events planned for 3-hour periods on the weekends. And again, 5 to 8. The other event was announced as being nightly and, occurring simultaneously. We, I think you can see from the, we have met at the urging of the county executive to try to work out a way that both events could occur. And we have been I think the trust has been very frustrated, and Janet, you can certainly amplify this, in that there was a single meeting about the, tactically how to do this. And there were some decisions made, or at least some decisions offered, that the trust felt were very dangerous, not safe. We were very concerned about them. And we haven't been able to meet or even discuss this with anybody for the last week, and we're just very concerned that some of these things are just inappropriate for the land. The other part of it is, of course, we need to monetize our event. Last year, the hospital paid us a total of $58,000 to do the Symphony of Lights, in the park. And again, they didn't use, the whole part of the park, but the ingress and egress was critical. Brad is proposing to use the same ingress and egress for his event. Now, we don't know who he's representing in this event. We have requested the name of the entity who's doing this, and we don't know. There's been no application to use our property, and there's been, again, we've had very limited discussion about anything, so there are things that we really need to know. A lot of what we think we know is simply secondhand. So we need to, we're just concerned about the use of the park. We would like to be able to come to something that is satisfactory and reasonable for both the community, the trust, and whatever other entity this is. There are alternatives to doing what we think has been proposed. The part of the the event that we are most concerned about is the proposal to have both entities use Chrysalis Drive simultaneously in their events. And that for us is very problematic. So this is just, again, we would like to be able to deal with this in a reasonable and professional way, and we just haven't been able to. And it's, again, we just needed to bring this situation to the board. Janet, do you have anything more?
Only to reiterate that if CA controls whether or not this other event happens, then it is impacting the ability for Inner Arbor Trust to monetize their off-season. Secondly, I don't believe with a driving event when streaming traffic down Chrysalis Drive that it's a safe situation for, in the event that an emergency vehicle would have to drive up that road, it could cause serious problems. The bigger thing in terms of the fiduciary duty is that I'm concerned that in the end, if we are providing that land free of charge, we are essentially providing, a donation to a for-profit venture, which I'm completely opposed to.
We don't know yet who is running that venture, which
Correct.
again is
part of the problem.
Exactly.
Dick?
Couple of questions. When you say Chrysalis Drive, you're talking the back way up to the VIP parking lot?
Right, the road
Okay.
up the hill.
So that's what, okay. And that is on CA land that you have the
Yes,
easement for?
that is CA land.
So they're
phase
trespassing if they use that, or is it a public right of way, or?
It's a, CA owns the drive.
Okay.
So it's a private drive.
Okay. Well, it seems to me the law is pretty clear on that. They can't use that without your permission.
Well, it's CA can give that permission. The
CA
trust
can.
does not have control over that.
What's wrong with this team?
Well, isn't that part of the easement? I mean.
Not yet, that's phase two. We control phase
Okay,
one,
so
which would be the west
So
side.
Chrysalis Drive is part of phase two.
Right, we control the west side. of
Okay,
it.
I got
So
you.
that's in phase one.
I think Dennis is going to point out where Chrysalis Drive is in case you don't know.
I don't have that screen on, but you can look on the sides here. So this is the Chrysalis, the white cottage is right here. So they're proposing to come down here, and the road, you can't see it, but comes out this way. If we go to the prior slide, this red is that road. It's not shown in red on the other slide, but it's the same travel path on both.
You can
So
see it
that's
a
That's the
little
existing
bit.
road.
That is the existing drive. It's not a county road. It's an access drive.
And you allow for two-way traffic on that road?
There's two-way traffic on the road. Nina is having a traffic engineer look at it
This way.
in terms of what steps would be taken during the events to make sure that it's safe. Probably would require having a couple people, some people at the top, some at the bottom, and if the travel speed was the same as it was through the lighted area. I think it could probably be made to work. It's going to cost some money, and that should certainly go to Symphony of Lights to make it work in terms of additional staffing to make that drive safe. If you're going to have
And what
group
about
events.
people trying to leave the Inner Arbor Trust event and get into a streaming line of exiting traffic?
Right.
Well, there'd be someone there with a flag to hold them back. So that would be part of the traffic plan.
Now, the yellow is walking and the red is cars, or?
No, the red is the kind of CA area in this
Oh,
slide,
okay.
and the yellow is the whole thing is driving.
Is the Mary
Right. The red is the ingress and egress.
Correct.
To the park.
And they want cars going?
So they're going to come in here and then do this serpentine loop and then come out here. Now, in the other plan, one of the problems with this orientation is that Nina would like to use this parking lot at the top for her event. And this orientation, that travel path goes through that parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
So the other orientation takes advantage of some existing roadways on the front to lengthen Symphony of Lights. And then they come out through Merriweather and then exit right at the end of that parking lot.
Jenny?
So can we
I-
clarify? I'm sorry.
Oh, I heard Lynn say that the Inner Arbor Trust would be from 5 to 8, which means people will be coming in probably 4:30 and leaving at 8:30. What time is this, whatever it's going to be called, Symphony of Lights or whatever? What time does that start?
I don't have the exact
Because
hours.
there's no ending, I mean, there's certainly an ending time, but people will go around, they'll be ending all the time, right? So you don't know what time it's going to start?
It's in, I think Nina has it in her, I don't have that
It's
memorized.
5 o'clock some days. I think it's 5 o'clock on the weekends and 6 o'clock on the weekdays.
So Dennis, which
going to-
entity have you been working with to determine the path?
So Brad came in, and so Brad, Nina, and Milton and I sat down and looked at this orientation.
Milton?
I received an email from Janet, and with a list of 8 questions, and I said I would respond to them by the close of business tomorrow. Lynn has this email. I learned the same time as we were called to the county executive office, and this is not the first time, because when you're dealing with that particular area, there's a lot of personality involved, and we got called we've been called, this is not the first time. We were called to a meeting at the county executive office because we come stating that that IMA, the DAC, and the trust are not playing well together, and this is not the first time. At that meeting, the first time everyone else in the room heard, probably except for Brad and Jean, that they were going to have this so-called Symphony of Lights.
We had no idea.
And so when we left there, the Jennifer Jones, representing the county executive office, said, "Could we have a meeting?" And I said, "Yes, we will set up a meeting." So I sat down with Nina, Brad, Jennifer Jones, Dennis, and I basically said, I don't want to have to make an either-or decision, so how can we make this work for both parties?
I don't think this is making it work for both parties. It's
What,
completely
Jen, let me
impacting
finish,
the Inner
please.
Arbor.
I haven't made any decision yet, but I
Well,
will
we
not.
wouldn't know, Milton, because you haven't shared any information
Okay,
either.
wait, come on, you let Milton finish, and then Janet can talk.
Janet, I'm not sitting as a trust board member. I'm sitting in my capacity of CA.
Of course.
And I basically said, I'm going to see whether I can make it work for both parties. But I'm not going to say, yes, this is a trust. I'm going to give it to the trust. Because also I have the understanding that CA property surrounds the Meriwether Post Pavilion. We have to give them means of ingress and ingress off their property. They can come to us and say they're going to have an event solely on Meriwether, on the 10 acres of Meriwether Post, but they can't get there without coming across CA's property.
Exactly. And again, we were told absolutely that the hospital would not do this after 2018. We still don't know what entity is putting on this other event. We have received no application. They have to use CA land and trust land. Trust still has an easement on part of that land that's going to be used. For that easement, last year, the hospital paid us $58,000. That was very important. You know, this year, we are being told we are getting nothing. We don't know, though, because we have not been part of any negotiations. We need to be able to present alternatives. There are ways for both entities to be able to do their event. We may have to compromise, but the trust is very concerned about the safety of the people who would come to our event. It's a pedestrian event. It will attract younger people and older people. The groups are not the same as the two groups will attract different people. But again, the Chrysalis Drive is our ADA access. You know, we need that for ADA access. We don't have any other ADA access. That's really critical. Again, nobody came and asked us about this event. We were told that this event was going to happen, basically whether we liked it or not. And that is, we still don't know who's running the event. Is it a private event or is it a nonprofit event? I mean, is it private or is it corporate? We don't know. We don't know.
Brad owns all the lights, isn't that the case?
No, the hospital owns the lights. And the hospital wrote us an email in August saying that the hospital was not going to run, that the hospital was not going to sell the lights. That the hospital, we had done, the DAC and the trust had both done requests for proposals for.
How's Brad going to do this without owning the light?
No, I assume that he's renting the lights from the hospital.
Renting, okay.
I don't know. We don't know. And we don't know in what capacity he's doing that. So I don't see how we can even begin to deal with this. This is, the lack of information. We've had a whole week, and this is time sensitive. If we're going to be able to work this out, we have to be willing, both parties have to be willing to look at alternatives that will make this work. We feel that it's impossible to get a steady stream of cars leaving down Chrysalis Drive and at the same time try to get our people in and out. Now, if the times were staggered differently, perhaps that might work. There are other things we could do, but nobody is talking. And it's, the trust the trust had planned a community event. We have disappointed our partners already. We don't know what to tell them.
Jenny?
Yeah, if you're planning your event October 31st, to open October 31st.
Right. No, it was November. It was November 30th.
I'm saying the off-season begins.
We were doing it after the Saturday after Christmas with Girls on the Run.
Okay, so
and
November.
That got a really enthusiastic response.
When would you be opening in November?
The 30th, the end of November.
Okay, November 30th. It's
We had
still,
8
my point is we don't have very much time for a decision here. And we don't even know for sure who the players are. That makes negotiating extremely difficult.
Yeah.
So I don't understand it. I don't understand why we don't know who we're negotiating with, and I don't understand why we would give, we've got to resolve this in the next week, quite frankly.
Okay.
And Lynn, I take exception. You're acting as if nothing has been done. I told you that we had a meeting.
Yes.
Nina was there.
Yes,
Nina
I know.
saw what we talked about. Brad was there. The county executive was there.
And then Nina wrote this to you, which you got
Yes,
Monday.
I see that. But Nina is speaking on behalf of the trust.
Yes.
I'm sitting as on behalf of the CA. And so
Right.
Nina is expressing her interest as the CEO of the trust.
Right.
Okay, I heard it. And I saw it.
I'd like to get in the queue.
After me.
Rafi is first and then Alan.
I think this meeting should have taken place a long time ago, not this close to these. In other words, in the beginning of the year, they're scheduling for things like this. This is not like, we are so close, Milton. I mean, the thing is that CA, because obviously we have all this interest and we want to make sure this is going to work, then we should have been there. I mean, in other words, aren't these events scheduled years ago? Couple of years ahead?
Okay, wait a minute. Let me explain something, Rafia. This is very typical of how the situations work. Nobody knew anything about this. Nobody. It was a sudden decision that then involved the county exec. Okay, until September, whatever it was, nobody knew about this. So we couldn't do any plans. There were no plans. Nobody knew it. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, the county exec got involved.
But you are missing the point. This
And
is what
then
I'm
we
saying.
acquiesce and allow
They
them
are
to
missing
do
the
it.
point. What I'm just saying is that we should have had this meeting and saying, here is what our plans are and this is what we are going to do. They should have been informed a long time ago. That's what I'm saying. We don't let things to happen to us and then we say, okay, we didn't know this, we are not that helpless.
We did have our plans. We presented our plans, our request for proposal back in February. And we shared our plans with the DAC. We asked the DAC if they'd like to cooperate with us in this pedestrian festival event? And they said no. They then submitted their own plan for Symphony of Lights. We weren't told until we wrote to the hospital, I think in June, saying we haven't heard back from you about this request for proposal, so we are going to go ahead and plan our own event. So we told them that back in June. We heard nothing from the hospital until August, when they said they weren't going. Nobody was going to. The requests for proposals were both denied, and they were not going to sell the lights. And that's all they said.
Alan.
Yeah, I guess, Lynn.
Yes.
I'm not clear. Maybe I missed something. I apologize. I hear that the Inner Arbor Corporation has its idea of what it wants to do on land that it has an easement for. What land is this other event supposed to be held on, or proposed to be held on?
We don't know because we haven't seen the proposal.
Well, it's up there. That's
That's the driving route, but we don't know if there are lights positioned on trust and or CA land. We don't know exactly all of
Nina
the...
was at the meeting. There's no.
Well, okay.
It seems to me there's a conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me. I think I have the floor.
Yeah, Alan,
What
go
they're-
ahead.
I think I have the
Alan,
floor.
go ahead.
Okay.
Alan
Yeah.
is going. Alan, let Alan, please.
So I'm not clear why this is. There are only two ways for any, as I understand, for anybody to get able to put anything on Symphony Woods, and that's either if CA approves it in an area that's outside what the trust has an easement for, or the Inner Arbor Corporation approves it on something that they have an easement for. So I don't get why this is such a, set the criteria, and if they meet it, fine. And if they don't meet it, they don't get to hold their event. I don't get why this is such a Sturm und Drang. Can someone help me out with that?
Our understanding is that Milton is making these decisions without input from the board and or Inner Arbor Trust.
And we have heard.
So there's a potential, so if I'm understanding it correctly, there's potential that Milton will make an agreement with Brad or whoever that he can run some kind of Symphony of Lights or whatever the event's going to be on CA property. Is that correct?
That is my understanding.
Okay, thank you. Didn't quite catch that as the concern. Thank you.
It's very much the same footprint that the hospital used last year in their Symphony of Lights that Brad produced. And we were paid a substantial amount of money, still probably not what it was actually worth, so that the hospital could produce the last Symphony of Lights. So this is why this is such a shock. We did not expect this. We were at a meeting, and it just was blurted out in the middle of the meeting in the middle of September.
Let me ask one last question of Milton then. Milton, have you had any conversations with anybody other than that meeting you mentioned about this other? Have you received a request for another event or use of CA property for this other Symphony of Lights type event?
Okay, Alan, have I received a request from whom?
From Brad, from anybody.
I had a meeting. It was earlier this week, I think, or late last week. I had a meeting with Nina, Brad, Jennifer Jones.
You mentioned that, right? You mentioned that meeting, but outside of that meeting, which was a meeting, as I understand it, called by the county executive to try to get all the parties to talk.
No, that's a different meeting.
Okay.
The meeting.
Has Brad requested something of you, or Brad or anybody on his, that be related to Brad, requested something of you?
At the meeting that the county executive called, that's the first time we heard that there was going to be a Symphony of Lights type of version that was going to be held by IMA or whatever entity that are involved. That's the first time that that came to our attention that they're even planning that. After that meeting,
Well, how can they be planning if they haven't gotten permission for it?
because they can have a Cynthia Lights event on Meriwether property without getting permission from CA.
How can they? They have to be able to get in and out.
But I can't. The thing about it is
Yeah,
that
but they get entrance and egress to their property. That we understand.
yes,
But is it on their property or are they requesting it for CA property?
they're not requesting it on CA property. They're requesting the gate.
Oh.
The access.
And Sherry, help me with this. Basically, hypothetically, if the trust, right now the trust, the area phase 1 that the trust has under its easement, if they say we're not going to grant an easement, grant permission for IMA or whatever entity it is to drive across our property, I can't make that same determination because they have to have ingress and egress to their property. So if they say, okay, trust, you're not going to give us ingress or egress, I'm going to CA because I have to get to my property. And there's portion of it, there's portion of it where it's not under the trust's control.
We told you that we could live with access on Chrysalis Drive if we would allow them to use the western part, the western entrances. And that at that point, we were talking about we'll both do it. They use the west entrance, we use Chrysalis Drive. That's the only drive that we can really use. And
They could come in
there
and
was
out.
never any attempt to ask whoever is running this Symphony of Lights to modify their program. All we have is this one map, and we have no application. We have no idea who's actually running it. We have not been asked, we allowed this kind of access before, but we worked together with the hospital. We were paid for it because we could monetize our own land. We were told that event would not be occurring again this year, so we planned what we think is probably a better community event.
Andy, can we hear the answer of Sherry?
Wait a minute, Shari wanted her.
All right, so I would just like to add on to what Rafia said. The consequence of not planning this early enough on, and the consequence of not planning this with all of the entities, is that CA gets to ask for monetary amounts, whatever we decide to ask for. And I hope that there is a punishment fee in it, in the same way that if you don't pay your mortgage on time, you got a little extra that gets tacked on. Your credit goes down, and it has to be clear to the community that your credit has gone down. So I understand that you want to get to a compromise. I applaud that. If there are two...
For the list of participants on this conference call, press 1. To return to the conference call, press star. To leave the conference call, press 9. To enter the administrator mode, press 5.
Can I go to the administrator mode?
Okay, we're having problems with the IT. What can I say? Okay, sorry.
For the list of participants on this conference call, press 1. To return to the conference call, press star. To leave the conference call, press 9. To enter the administrator mode, press 5.
What I'm trying to say here is that if there is some way of dividing this
For the
up
list
so
of
that
participants
we
on this conference call, press 1.
safety,
To return to the conference call,
has to
press
be our
star.
major concern. If we are responsible for that road, and it is a very, very tight road. I have been up there many times. It's tight driving, and it's certainly not safe for people to be walking and driving at the same time. That's the bottom line there. The second part of that is that if you're going to compromise in some kind of way, set your fee at an amount that actually makes sense. We cannot give this away. There is absolutely no reason to give this away, and I think that CA has to support the Inner Arbor Trust in this.
Okay, there was a question toward Sherry about the...
In order to be able to decide who has legal rights to do what? I need to know exactly what property is going to be in use here.
Yeah, that would be
because
nice.
you've actually got three things in play here.
Right.
One is the piece of Symphony Woods, which is at the moment phase one, that the trust has an easement for. There is all the rest of Symphony Woods, basically, over which the trust does not yet have an easement that is within CA's control. But there are also long-standing, permanent ingress and egress access easements that were granted by CA to Meriwether decades ago. And I have no idea right now, based on any information that anybody has been given, which pieces of Symphony Woods are going to be in use here, which makes it very difficult for me to figure out right now who's got to have an agreement with who about what use is going to be made of which pieces of property.
Okay, so I think the answer I heard, particularly for what Rafi is that CA is obligated to provide access, ingress, egress to Meriwether. Right, okay. Just so we all understand
There's
that.
nothing preventing
But-
us from charging for the access.
But, right.
Yeah, but we have to give them
And you
access.
can have ingress, egress, right where
Right.
you enter, you could
Yes.
also leave.
Yes.
Right.
They don't
West
have
side,
to
east
use
side.
Chrysalis.
And where is
Can
that
I ask
exactly?
a question
I mean,
also?
Off Hickory Ridge Road.
Didn't the newer
I mean, that's what I
agreements
thought. East side is
supersede the old agreements?
No, they can't.
They can't.
They can't undo the
easement
easements.
agreement with the trust is subject to the previously existing easements between CA and Meriwether, because otherwise we could have overridden Meriwether's ability to ever get to or from its property. So those easements have to continue to exist in order for the Meriwether Post to be a usable piece of property. So you can't just eliminate those easements. So the easement with the trust is subject to those older.
I'm not saying eliminate.
Right.
I'm saying newer was based on older.
Yes and no. But the fact of the matter is, when you give somebody an easement, you can't decades later give somebody else an easement over that same property that eliminates the rights of the original parties with respect to the original easement. So the trust easement could not change the access easements that already existed with respect to Meriwether.
But there's nothing in there that says anything about monetary reimbursement.
Well, no, but what it says is those have already been granted. You can't charge them again for something that they've already been given. What I'm saying is, if they were to be using a route that only put into use the existing access easements between CA and Meriwether, they would have a right to do that without asking anybody's permission or paying anybody anything. If, however, they want to use property that is outside of those old easements, then they have to get permission from either the trust or CA, depending upon what property we're talking about, and either the trust or CA could charge them money for that privilege. So the first thing that has to happen here is everybody's got to decide where all of this stuff is going to be.
Right.
So I have a request so could you give us a map that shows the actual ingress, egress easements that were granted to Meriwether, so we kind of know.
Dennis, can you provide a map that shows the actual ingress?
Oh dear, I have a feeling I'm not gonna like this answer. Because I mean, that's the problem is that what I'd really like to do is see exactly where the ingress egress, so then we could say, oh yeah, this is, and then we go.
No, I would too, and this is not really doing it for me.
We have all of the old easements.
Super important. Have the same problem you do.
Right, but I can't do that. You have
One
to
in
do
one
that.
column.
And
You have to
again,
take the dots.
we have.
Dennis and I would have to work together to create this because I've got the records, he's got the ability to make maps. We would have to put all of that together and figure out a way to show
Well,
it
then
all.
doesn't the county executive need to know this? This is not something
Right.
that we can answer
Right.
just by being good guys. And I particularly resent the idea that we're supposed to be good guys and not charge for anything.
Well, we're supposed to be good guys, but IMA can act however they want.
That's ridiculous.
Okay.
I had
Dick,
my hand
Dick,
up.
yes, Dick, I saw it, Dick.
And
Dick.
I think this makes sense. We not only need a map, but we need the language of the easement. And so I think the language is more important than the map at this point. The other thing is, there is an entrance and egress on the west side. If
Right.
you look over here.
That's what we're
Is
talking
there,
about.
you know, if they can get in and out over on the west side, I mean, the idea that they use this access road to the VIP, that is not only a narrow road, but it's on a steep embankment, and you could roll right down that. That is not a safe road at all for anything.
Right.
So I think in addition to knowing the language of the easements, we need to know why they can't use the other side as an entrance in.
Is that the Hickory Ridge
Yeah,
extension?
Right.
The
Yeah,
Hickory
broken land.
Ridge,
Right, which we have, right, we thought for a brief period of time that issue had been resolved, that the trust could use Chrysalis Drive and that Brad's group, whoever they are, could use the west entrance, and that would have been fine.
Now, the other piece of this is this whole planning process. And this is one of the things that we've been having all these meetings with the other groups about. We need to have a central booking agent here. And it sounds to me like Inner Harbor has already, had the priority here. And we are also having a similar problem, or the county is, with Wine in the Woods, where IMA is, stepping on everybody's toes here. And, we need to get some kind of a system going where we figure out who's going to be doing what when.
That would be absolutely admirable.
I do think, one of the things that we really have to find out, and maybe not for but definitely for the future, is the actual location of the easements, because it is possible that there are actually two easements. One from Hickory and one from...
There are multiple easements. I believe that there are, don't hold me to it, but I believe that there are 5 different easement agreements between CA and Meriwether, because there were easements that were created for ingress and egress. There were also easements that were created for certain of the parking.
There's also an easement for some utility lines.
Right.
So there are a number of different easements, which is why creating this map is complicated.
And those would have transferred to the DAC.
The thing is, I don't think Milton can give anybody any answers tomorrow. I think
Wasn't
you're going
planning to, Dick.
Okay. Well, I just was going to suggest that you tell them you need more time.
No one's, basically, that's what we've been told. We sat down with them and we saw what the trust wanted to do and what Brad came to the table with. And I said, in that meeting, changes were made to the map that was originally submitted by Brad Canfield in order to accommodate. And I said, let us take a look at it. And Dennis has been looking. Dennis has had conversation with Brad. He's had conversation with Nina. We have not made a decision.
Okay, no, I'm sorry. I must have misheard, but I thought you had told them that you would get back to them by close of business tomorrow.
No.
I imagine
No,
that.
Milton told me that he would answer my questions by tomorrow.
Janet sent me a list of
I'm
questions.
sorry, I misheard. Okay.
Jenny.
Yeah, okay. So the ability to get in and out is one of the issues, and the maps will help, but it seems like a compromise is go ahead with Inner Harbor up here, we take the Toby's entrance, and they take the Hickory Ridge, and it's all over. Except the second thing that's bothering me is the Symphony of Lights. Where are they going to be placed? Are they going to simply be on Meriwether Post property? Then who cares? But if they're going to be placed on CA property or Inner Harbor property, we have that issue as well, and I'm not clear on that.
Have you seen any diagram for what they propose to do? All I've seen is that one map.
Originally, Dennis, do you have the original plan that Brad came to the table with? Originally, Brad came to the table. You see that yellow line, that was where he wanted to have his original plan going right through the parking lot where the White House is.
No, right, which actually the trust does have an easement
Okay,
over the
Lynn,
deck.
let me finish, please.
Okay, sorry.
And then in the meeting, we told, Nina was there, and Nina said that would be a problem. We started discussing how could we change that. And what we did, would you show the next one? We moved them from there and moved them over there where they would say they would only have on CA property, only have a light display, but still be on a hard surface driving. So that's from the first time we sat down trying to compromise and trying to work out this.
Wait a minute, we're gonna give them on CA property lights without charging them? And we're not getting a percentage of the profit?
Jimmy, I was trying to work through
No,
this.
no,
I had two parties
right.
fighting at each other.
I understand. You got the county executive.
I'm put in the middle of personalities. This is what's driving this, personalities.
And the county executive, you said, okay.
Yes.
So I understand that pressure, but I'm just saying, I think I hear some board members saying, if they're gonna put the lights on our property, we are gonna charge. And I'm sure the Inner Arbor Trust is saying they're gonna put the lights on their property, they're gonna charge. I think that's reasonable, because what is the profit? We got 58,000, or you did last year, but you didn't tell us what the gross profit was and what the net. No, but I'm sure it's a lot more than that.
And
So-
700,000 or something.
We can
gross,
be
I
here
think.
sitting and talking a long time, but I just think that, Milton have explained something. We want Sherry and Dennis to come back. And if they have the right and the easement which was granted to them, and so then there is nothing we can do as long as they are using that. And then let's get that facts, and then we can, come up with some reasonable solution. And I think otherwise we are just going to sit here and talk and talk and talk. So let's find out what are the real easements given where we cannot interfere with those easements anymore. And then what other alternate solution can we come up for the Inner Arbor Trust and and so far. So let's do that, because we will be spending here another hour just
Right,
talking.
no, and I think we still need to know who's actually running.
But we CA can't provide that.
What?
We CA can't provide that.
No.
Because we don't know.
Somebody
give
should
them
know if
anything
we're
unless
talking
Who's
to
asking
them.
for dealing with. permission?
We can
You can't
ask
give
who
them
they are.
permission. You don't give blank permission, you gotta know who the
For
person
anybody?
is. That's a legitimate request.
The easements are with Meriwether.
No,
The
so then it
easements-
needs to be Meriwether. If
the
it's
easements are
Brad
with
doing something on
Meriwether.
a zone, that's another
Who
story.
who Meriwether might contract with or that is beyond our
So
control.
we
we
received
have
this
to
request
deal
from Meriwether?
With Meriwether. Right, that's what
And
the
we
easements
also
are.
have to
First
have
I've heard of
some
it.
principle here. What is guiding, not just what we're doing today and not just this one decision,
Right.
but what are we gonna do in the future?
Right.
Because we have two events here
Yes.
and we have a history
Yes,
also that has to be looked at.
yes.
So we have to stop kicking this can down the road
Every year,
and
same
come
thing.
up with some principle that's gonna guide our behavior.
The first thing is finding out where the easements are.
And the second thing is determining who we're gonna talk to. If we're gonna talk to Meriwether, then we're gonna talk to Meriwether.
And if it's Who's not, Meriwether? then we don't have to What talk part to of anybody.
Meriwether is DAC.
DAC owns
now.
Meriwether. DAC would have gotten
The
the,
DAC said they're not involved. We'll see.
Well, but they are.
but they are.
If our
They are.
easements say that
gave-
they are,
gave permission
then
to
they
Brad.
are.
Yes, right.
They gave permission
That's
to Brad.
that's what it is.
DAC is a wholly owned subsidiary of Brad.
So Andy, you know this, or are you speculating?
It's Brad.
No, what I'm saying is our easements.
He doesn't.
Okay,
I'm not
our-
talking about easements, I'm talking about the situation with driving on any
With Brad.
property. Of course, we have to find out what the long-term easements are where they don't
Right.
have to ask permission. In any capacity where they need either CA or Inner Arbor Trust permission, who is asking?
No, I am not in favor of driving on CA
That's
property.
not what I'm asking.
No,
Who is
who
asking?
Is it Brad?
Who
Has
is
he
the entity
created
that
his
is
own
requesting
entity?
that
Or is
access?
it Meriwether?
We don't know, do
Well,
we?
that's the question. That's what we have to
Right.
find out.
Right.
Okay,
But-
I have two important new business issues I want to
But
bring up.
from our point of view, easements are with Meriwether, which is owned by DAC.
We
So
know.
therefore, if we want to deal with any easements, we don't have any easements with Brad. You know,
Right.
there's nothing.
So
Okay,
that's
so
why
we
we
have to
don't
deal
even
with
care about the
Meriwether.
easements until we know who it is that's requesting this.
No. Here's why.
If it's Brad doing his own thing, the answer is easily no. If it's Meriwether or the DAC, that's another situation.
Right.
But once we get that answer, then we know
Yes.
if we have to deal with the easements.
That's right.
We don't have to deal with the easements if it's Brad and his buddies from high school or God knows what. So why don't we take it one step at a time?
Find the easements.
Find the easements.
My concern here is for the Inner Arbor Trust, though, they have to plan. And they have to get contracts signed, et cetera. So it's got to be resolved, or they are going to be hurt.
We already know the
They're not
steps.
going to be able to do anything. And there's going to be no income coming into the Inner Arbor. And that's going to impact on their need to apply for more funds from CA, and that's wrong. This is ridiculous.
Can I give you my two, everybody wants to go home.
Okay. I think
My
we're
two
done with
new
the two.
business requests
Yep.
are, number one, our little committee that met.
Yep.
There was never any discussion about any of those issues that I sent.
Actually, there was at the BOC.
Well,
Sorry.
this is not the BOC, this is the full board. And the full board, I suggest, should have a say as to any of those topics that we brought up and discussed, and a vote I would like to see. Number two, I would also like to see us discuss, which I had talked about before, where the money for nonprofits is going and who is going to determine it. Don't look surprised. We talked about this in emails, and we said we needed to have a conversation, and that new business was the time for me to bring up this topic, and now you're looking at me as though I'm
Right, because I
green.
already told the board October 17th.
Well, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
really.
I did. I'm sorry. I did.
Yeah, you did. It's on the agenda for
That's
October
fine.
17th.
Okay.
really.
Yeah.
good.
I mean, sorry.
Yeah,
But I'd
Yeah, I
also
did.
like to know when the ad hoc committee discussion will be.
All right. We've captured that. All right, is there anything else? All right. Tracking forms, any questions? No.
Can I just
Okay.
ask for feedback at our next work session about this issue on the Inner Arbor Trust?
If we have any feedback, Milton can write it.
I mean, I think this is one of those issues, when we say that there's a pressing issue,
Yeah.
this is
Right.
clearly a pressing issue, and we need to get this as soon as possible.
If there is any feedback,
Time is of the essence.
right,
So can we include it on the next agenda?
we can do that, as long as I have feedback. Does that make sense?
Well,
Well, if there's no
I
feedback.
can see us almost needing an emergent, I don't want this, by the way,
No.
another night out. But I think it's so sensitive that I can see us almost having an emergency meeting with the board if needed. I'm not advocating that, but I don't, this is a tight time frame. I don't know how the Inner Arbor, Nina plans without getting an answer in the next couple of days. In fact, they should have gotten an answer 2 weeks ago. Who are you dealing with is a simple question.
It should be.
What is the mystery here? That's outrageous as far as I'm concerned.
I agree with that, Jen.
And I'm not blaming anybody on CA staff. I'm saying
But
whomever
Jenny,
this person.
again, we are going back again the same thing until we find out about the easement right.
No,
If
I
we
know,
have given already easement to the Meriwether, and if the Meriwether decide to rent that space to anybody, and they have all the right to do, and whoever they are giving it to, then they have the right to use their easement. See, you understand? It does not matter to us whether they are giving it to the for-profit or to the non-profit. If they have the easement rights, period, we have no say in it, because then they can rent it and make the money. So, I mean, let's not waste any more
Yeah,
time. Get
all
the
right.
data, please.
All right, talking points.
Good luck.
This will be interesting, Janet.
Good luck, Janet.
The board approves strategic initiatives number 2 and number 5 on the President CEO's strategic initiatives for FY 2020. The BOD voted to table strategic initiative number 4 until a board meeting to be held on October 10th following the adjournment of the work session.
Yes, right.
The BOD voted to approve Form 990 with the changes made by the audit committee. The board voted to suspend the rules to allow a vote on the climate emergency declaration. The board voted to approve the climate emergency resolution.
Sounds good. I think you caught it. Hearing no objection, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you. Thank you for all coming out tonight. Can you kill the mics real quick? Can you kill the mics real quick?
Oh.